Hello, everybody. It is time for your favorite show, well, your second favorite show, Countless Chronicles. Today, we've got a very fun treat for you. It is the Ask Me Almost Anything with Logan for Arc 2. He will be joining us after our recaps. If you don't know me, I am Tessa. I go by Selkie Dreams on Twitter. I am a member of the Nerdsmith Network. In fact, I'm one of the directors. I do a bunch of different stuff for the network. And I also play Kelly. And with me is my lovely, as always, co-host.
Hi, everyone. I'm Heather. I'm another one of the directors for Nerdsmith, actually, and I play Soxy on Countless Heroes. You can find me on Twitter at amethyst_magic, just like it says on the screen. And with that, I think we're ready to get into our recaps. Don't forget, tonight is the AMAA, Ask Me Almost Anything. Logan's going to answer questions at the end. So if you guys think of anything during the recaps, go ahead and put it into the chat. Tessa and I are keeping an eye on that, and we'll make sure to grab it so that Logan can answer your question at the end.
Yep, we'll be taking turns running. Whichever one of us is not recapping, we'll be watching chat for questions to put it into a document that Logan can see, and we might be working on formulating his answers while we're talking. So we've got a little bit of a shorter recap for you, as there's only a few episodes, but we're going to start with everyone's favorite number, episode 69. Would you like to recap 69, or do you want me to?
I can. I mean, I typed up the notes for it, so that would make sense.
Away you go. I'll be watching chat for any questions you might have for Logan.
Sounds good. Okay, so episode 69, the beginning of the episode, no big surprise considering the number. There were a lot of innuendos and sex jokes and everything. So we're just going to skip that and get to the part that actually plot-wise is important. So everyone met up at the Beer Forge, and at that point, Rosie did apologize to Nathan. She pulled him aside and said sorry for the way she had acted the other day. But he also apologized to her for making her ever feel like she'd been marginalized or anything like that. They had a little bit of a row a couple days before where Rosie talked about not being happy. And so this was them sort of making amends and coming together again. Mari was also there and still very irritated with Nyx, who was in this session, because Nyx had upset Ezra. For anyone who missed that episode, Nyx stopped going to the Nature Temple to do the community service hours that Ezra had required of them, and in doing so upset Ezra for obvious reasons. And Ezra had punished them to try to teach them a lesson by basically cursing them so that all of their stat bonuses were gone. Basically, every roll is just a 10 plus whatever, or not even a 10, it's just whatever was rolled on the dice. So Syl got tangled in her yarn that she was using to make fingerless gloves for Dub. Nyx helped get her untangled, and Rosie happened to mention that she had sent a message to Haley and heard back, which Mari was noticeably silent about. As far as we know, Mari hasn't had any direct contact with Haley since Haley left town. Everyone decided to go talk to Pinball about researching how to close the Shadowfell gate and just the Shadowfell in general to get more information. And as they were leaving, Owen and a couple other people saw this red burgundy coat in the crowd and didn't really think anything of it. But Owen got a bug bite on the back of his hand. And Rosie noticed that red burgundy coat had some sort of strange gun inside of it, but didn't say anything to anyone at the time. They went to Pinball's, and when they went in the back door, they heard Pinball scream from the lab. So naturally, everyone raced over there, worried something was wrong. Turned out he yelled in excitement because he had found the cure for Syl's disease, which made everyone really happy. He was jumping up and down and hugging Syl's mother. And the downside to the cure is that it does stain Syl's feet purple, but Syl's not actually too sad about that. So while she was getting her feet cured, everyone else was looking through the library, and she and her mother had a moment where they talked about Syl, needing to understand that she could be patient. Her duties to the Goa didn't have to happen right away. She had time. And meanwhile, back in the library, as they were looking, everyone started to notice there's some strange words starting to appear, letters where Owen had been bitten. So his bug bite was starting to form into some sort of message. Worried that it might be something dangerous, Owen cast Dispel Magic and was able to stop the word from forming and get rid of the spell. So we don't actually know what that message was going to say. Given later events, we have a suspicion, but we don't know. One thing that's important from a heartwarming moment, I guess I should say, from the Syl and Eriskine interaction was that Eriskine did whisper to Syl, "You are my favorite creation," which is very sweet. After dispelling the words, Rosie mentioned that she had seen the gun inside of the red coat and that there had been a spider etched onto the gun as well as a crystal sort of floating above it. They discussed the men with the spider tattoos that they had dealt with before back at Matthias's farm way, way back in Arc 1. And the fact that those same men had also been seen with the Nocturne in the Temple District back in Arc 1 when there were about 100 Nocturne just sitting inside of a temple. They also remembered that Ivy had gotten a letter from from Red before Akmon and the others left town. So they went and talked to Ivy just in case it was Red who had left them the note. At the Beer Forge, they found out from Ivy that Red and the others had actually left town. And she said that they had seen a person in the crowd in a long red coat come into the bar once or twice, but not a whole lot. They hadn't really been in there often. And Nyx offered to use their connections to get more information on the group and who they were. Trying to do so, they went to another bar called the Rusty Tap because the Beer Forge was pretty empty that day. And while they were there, they noticed there were a few newer folk over in the corner, specifically a very, very large person with an elephant trunk, a troll with very mottled skin, and what looked to be a saber-toothed tabaxi. So Nyx, as Thomas, went and ordered a drink and then upturned the cup. And unfortunately, at this point, the saber-toothed tabaxi came over, turned his cup over as well, slammed it on the table and said, "I accept," and started fighting with Thomas. What ensued was a very, very strange fight where the tabaxi was trying to fight Thomas and then still grappled the tabaxi, and then Rosie bit the tabaxi's ear, and there was wild magic going off and just kind of chaos. The tabaxi grew feathers. Nathan turned into a sheep. Just a lot of craziness happened during that particular fight. And from there, everything got calmed down, and they discovered that the tabaxi and his friends were from an area where the upturned cup wasn't a signal to the inverted cups to come talk. It was a signal that you wanted to challenge someone. So everything suddenly made a whole lot more sense. At that point, we found out that the tabaxi was named Kurzul Earthwalker. The elephant trunk person was a Loxodon named Nambu, and the troll was a jungle troll named Razi. And they were all from the Shovel Tusks, which is one of the adventurers guilds that's part of the Steel Syndicate. There was more talking with them and learning some more, including that they couldn't tell us a whole lot about where they'd been before. And then as things started to settle down, a halfling slipped into the seat next to Thomas, and they started talking and got a little more information. The halfling didn't know a whole lot, but he told Thomas to go speak with Bezel, because Bezel would be able to give him more information. Thomas went back and told the rest of the group, to which the exact words were, Thomas informed everyone his name is Bezel, and Owen said, "Oh, Jesus fucking Christ," because he was not happy to hear that it was Bezel. Anyone who had seen the first arc knows we had some trouble with Bezel in the beginning. He kidnapped Pinball. There's a whole bunch of stuff going on there. He's not everyone's favorite little fey dragon. Let's just put it that way. So after that, everyone headed off to their various endeavors. Owen actually ended up circling back and challenging the Shovel Tusks again. At some point during the night, everyone met up with Pinball and had dinner at the Olive Grove to celebrate the fact that he'd cured Syl's issue. Mari and Nathan ended up having a fade to black moment at Nathan's estate for anyone who was waiting for that to happen. Let's see. Rosie sent a message to Daisy, and Nyx ran into what they thought was Mo on the way home. There was no special clothing or anything, though, and it turned out to be a Modron that wasn't Mo. Specifically, the Modron was named Moira, and she was there to meet with Mo and talk to him. So she ended up going home with Nyx because Nyx couldn't get rid of her. And that was where we ended episode 69.
Alrighty, episode 70. So, the next morning, Owen was working with the guard and began to explore what was going on with Bezel a little bit more. Mari spent some time in her shop, and Callie was very excited to have the first service in her temple to the prime deities. There were a few people that actually showed up, so she was very excited. Soxy worked in the nature garden and tried to talk to Ezra, but he had not been at the temple in a bit. Lark went to Syl's shop, and the two of them started making paintball pellets to sell. And Oisin spent time with Pinball. After all of the work that Pinball had did in curing Syl, he's been spending a lot of time sleeping because he's exhausted. So Oisin left some breakfast for him. The group gathered at the beer forge, and it was fairly busy when they got there. Owen arrived with sporting bruises from his tussle with the shovel tusks, and Callie asked what those were from and suggested he keeps his elbows in again. Owen suggested maybe looking to Bezel a little bit more. Ivy came over and shared a tray of something covered in waffle batter, but it was kind of more of like a mozzarella cheese stick, but it was a little bit too savory. So the group made some suggestions on how it could possibly improve. Maybe a little bit of a creamier cheese and then some beer batter instead of waffle batter. Finally, everybody arrived and they all enjoyed the cheese sticks. Ivy spoke with the group and had some information about a new group in town. The folks that we thought what was called from the Black Steel Corporation are actually a group called the Birchfield Seekers. They come in under different names and guises into new cities to get a lay of the land before they actually stake their claim. Birchfield is incredibly organized, and in compared to the Steel Syndicate, they seem to go very much strictly by the book. There's some rivalry between the two, and it's varied on how extensive the rivalry is between. So the group decides to revisit the castle and focus on finding some more shiny things. As they were getting ready to go, a letter appears on the table with a black seal and a glittery spider on it. And inside is a handwritten note scrawled, "This will be your last warning. Do not close the portal." So the group decided to continue on with their plan on going to the castle underwater. It's not like they were planning on closing the portal today anyway, since we didn't have a ton of stuff. And as they were walking out, Aldion appeared and brought the group around the corner of a doorway and into a room where he pulled out a large bag with a jar and a lid on it to encase energy of creatures from the Shadowfell. Apparently, one of the ingredients in closing the portal is Shadow Essence, which the group must harvest in a ritual that lasts 1 minute long, and the person who is channeling the ritual has to give it their entire focus and action for a full minute. We needed at least 8 shadow creatures. 10 would be best, and 6 is the minimum. It would require also attunement of the urn. So the person focusing was really going to be out of the fight. In return, he said he would research the men with the spider symbols and try to find out more information about them. And if the group encountered a lich or a vampire, the jar would destroy their soul while also gathering essence. But we were also warned against going against anything too intelligent, because the more intelligent the creature in the Shadowfell, the more dangerous they are. So, the group gave up on ideas of going to the castle and decided to venture into the Shadowfell once more to see what we could find. We stopped really quickly in Arlen's Our Chemicals Oddities, and as we shopped, Arlen mentioned he couldn't sell magical items in Silverhaven because of the Subrosarium has a monopoly on the sale of magical items. He also mentioned that if the group joined an adventuring guild, they would be able to procure some benefits, things like scroll insurance, discounts, and even sometimes sponsorship. He mentioned that we should let him know if we ever made a formal foray into being an adventuring guild. So as we left, we ran into members of the Beastmasters, and we met a girl named Julia, who is kind of the leader. And when asked about how we would go about starting our own adventuring guild or adventuring group within the Steel Syndicate, we were told to speak with Hasko, who wasn't in town yet. So the group filed that away for further information and headed on over to Pimble's, knowing that there was some sort of ritual that needed to be done to make access to the Shadowfell safe for us all. As we spoke with Pinball, he was a little bit worried about us going back into the Shadowfell, as one should be. It's not exactly a safe place. But he gave us a pair of sending stones so that we could contact him the second we were done and get him away from the ritual so he could rest. He said he was very familiar with the Guardian in both of their forms, and it came out that the Guardian is Imelda. Feeling no less apprehensive, the group continued down to the Shadowfell caves. As we walked in, we noticed that the holy water basin was almost empty, as if someone had been there beforehand to drink more of it. And none of us really thought much of it, thinking maybe it was some negative energy from the portal. Owen attuned to the magic urn as we waited and started heading out. And as we were about to walk through the portal, there was an attack as Alchemist Fire was hurled from behind us right in front, along with a voice saying, "We were warned." To which Callie decided to respond in kind and took a piece of chalk and wrote in her finest handwriting, kindly, "Go fuck yourselves." And we took a few minutes to try and figure out where it may have come from. And instead, what we found was the spider drake resting up against a wall, seeming to be recovering from its injuries. The group decided not to attack it right away, deciding that we needed to be able to get through the Shadowfell. We knew that Pimble was doing a ritual, and any wasted time was not going to be good. So we walked in and saw 3 potential creatures. Something huge and draconic looking peeking out of a cave. An ethereal creature with a purple glow in its chest with enormous tusks and claws and a ruined ship. And then what seemed to be an undead fiendish unicorn. We figured that the unicorn and the drake seemed to be less intelligent and then possibly less difficult to manage. And Owen did know that the unicorn might be able to cast magic, so we approached cautiously. Soxy made sure that Oshin's net was now a magic weapon with the judicious use of the spell. And as we got close, Owen started the first ritual. And the demonic horn, as we've been calling it, attacked. It ended a little bit poorly in the fact that we forgot that we couldn't kill the thing that we were attacking we had to accomplish the ritual. And as we were very concerned about the damage that the demonic horn was doing, especially to Lark, Lark used a moonbeam spell to attack and unfortunately killed the creature before we could finish the ritual. So we decided to check out the cave instead and maybe go after the drake-looking creature. Owen tried to use an illusion to draw out the drake, which didn't particularly work the first time, but the second time the drake came out and there was a wave of magical darkness that swallowed the illusion. And since none of us could see in the dark that well, we decided that was not a good plan, and we left. As we left, the group noticed that the blood crystals that had been growing since Nathan's spell had been stomped and crunched out. And Callie's chalk message had also been scraped and scuffed out. Lark and Mari decided to collect some of the blood crystal dust, and Oshin used the sending stone to tell Pinball that he could release the spell. And as they got away, the vessel appeared before the portal. We went back to Pimble's and had him look over the demonic horn that Owen had taken, and we were told it was possible to use rituals to imbue it with magical properties, and turning it into a wand of binding would be his recommendation. He also said it would be cheaper than the old-fashioned way, but it might come with a quirk or two. So the group added that to their to-do list, as the ingredients would be expensive to get, but harvestable. And that was the end of session 70.
Okay, so session 71, this was the day before Thanksgiving, I believe. So it was kind of a holiday episode, but not exactly. For anyone who has watched the VOD, this is the turkey trauma episode. So Primeheart and Callie woke up that morning and did their morning prayers, made their way into Cinderhaven, and ran into a man named Seamus, who was there to sell creatures at the auction in Greywall. They noticed that the horses' necks weren't quite normal. They had really thin necks and they were tied back so that they didn't move. And according to Seamus, they were prized for their meat, which seemed really strange to the two of them. So they decided that they wanted to try and buy those creatures later and save them. Nathan and Mari woke up at his estate and ate and did some work at her shop. Oshin enjoyed the morning with Pinball, and then everyone met up at the beer forge. It was insanely busy. They ordered food, and everyone discussed sort of that Yoth hadn't been around that week yet, and Ivy mentioned that it might partly be Ivy mentioned that the reason they were so busy is because of the hiatus following Yoth's prank. And everyone kind of agreed that it would probably have been better had it not been inside Ivy's bar. They didn't have a problem so much with the cowboy and them getting splashed with nasty stuff, but we kind of felt bad about Ivy's bar. Binksy appeared and hung out with everybody, and they discussed the horses more. Sorry. And also what to do about them, since there was definitely something strange going on. They also ran into Anika, who came into the beer forge. She talked to Nathan specifically about the fact that Nyx was trustworthy and had various talents, even though they had not necessarily had the best interaction with him the first time. And talked some more with everyone about before everyone headed to the auction. They decided to go talk to Pinball about the auction because obviously he's the richest person we know that likes us and is willing to spend money on things. So they went and talked to him.
It's okay. It's okay. You could do it.
Okay. They found Pinball inside, just making some food. He knew about the auction and that the person, Breedmaster Seamus, was actually known for his animal husbandry. So they decided to go to the auction together and see what was there. There were a whole bunch of different auctions, including one that was just for monstrosities. They saw the horse auction and it was really, really packed. So they got auction paddles and started looking around at everything. Binksy wanted to get himself a pet or a mount of some kind, so he was looking at things as well. And Nathan had already agreed to buy him something as long as he could afford it.
Whatever he wanted was the agreement. He would buy him whatever he wanted. Very important to note.
Okay, I missed that part. The auction for the horses began, and they found out that Seamus's animals were a late addition, so that's why they weren't on the listing. They did bid on the animals. 16 of the strange horses were put up for bid, and Nathan tried to buy them. He offered quite a bit of money, but ultimately, for 6 of them, the price ended up being 3,000 gold pieces, which he didn't end up going for. The buyer ended up being someone, a very snobby lord named Lord Allard, who planned on taking them back to Highwater with him. And he agreed to let Nathan look at them, thinking that he just wanted to draw them rather than investigating them. Callie ended up choosing to buy a bunch of chickens with Binksy and Pinball. And then Binksy also ended up getting a rather strange-looking small bird with a muzzle and a blindfold to be his new mount. At the stable where they were looking at the horses, the attendant that was there working with them became a little suspicious about the way they were investigating the creature, so she made them leave. But meanwhile, Callie and Pinball and Binksy, who his bird-like creature was a cockatrice that he named Waffles. Because we need a imp with a cockatrice running around in our party.
I love it. I love Waffles so much.
Yeah. Callie named her chickens Hen Solo, Princess Leia, Layia, and Amelia Eggheart. Because, of course. And Nathan ended up buying an owl. The pronunciation of the name apparently is Keelan.
Yeah.
But everyone just keeps calling it Key Lime because it's a ridiculously long and hard to say name. They took the chickens back to the temple, and meanwhile, several members of the group followed the cart that was taking the strange horses out of town because they were worried that something shifty was going on. Not entirely sure what, just something wasn't right. They ended up not exactly attacking, but slowing down the cart with things like plant growth, trying to be sort of sneaky about it. And O'Sheen disguised himself and used invisibility to try to get to the back of the cart. They ended up using Dispel Magic also and discovered that the horses were turkey horses, which would explain why their meat was so prized. But in the process, O'Sheen got in trouble for trying to get into the cart, and Mari had to run off in one of her animal forms to get Pinball really fast. She ran off as a dog to grab him. Ezra was also brought out. He did vouch for the group, and he talked the guards down, essentially, so that we didn't get in trouble, and then Pinball showed up. And there was, lots of next time go through the city, don't just go off on your own kind of thing, which we honestly probably should get better about. And then Binksy had also ordered a special saddle for his new cockatrice mount. At the end of the episode at Pinball's Tower, O'Sheen and Pinball were talking about him wanting to retire in 100 years, and he and O'Sheen discussed getting a cat and awakening it. And that was the end of episode 71.
Love that. I really want the awakened cat. I'm
Oh my god, I love the idea of an awakened cat, but could you imagine Mowgli awakened? Oh my god.
No. I love your cat. I really do, but no.
No, it'd be so bad.
No.
Mowgli is my Bengal cat. He's not the one you guys see on the screen. Cupid, this one, is the cute one that comes and licks my head. She would just be ridiculously needy if she was awakened. I'd have to hear her saying mom, mom, mom instead of her licking my head.
You would, however, Mowgli is the one you hear on stream, though.
Yes, if you hear in the background the yeah, that's Mowgli.
All right, let's move on to episode 71. We've only got 4 more to go, and then we'll bring Logan on for the Ask Me Almost Anything. So remember to submit your questions in chat, or if you're a member of our Discord, you can go on to Countless Heroes questions and submit your questions there. And we're gathering them up for Logan to answer in just a little bit here. So, episode 72. After Primeheart had learned about the plate growth spell, he used the spell to kind of terraform his camp a little bit, making some accumulated growth around the edges of what he's now calling his estate, with a little bit of space to make an entry to keep intruders out. Rosie managed to do some time at the beer forge and spent the rest of her morning with Daisy. Connor joined us, and having him back was very, very nice. He used his morning to explore his old haunts and talking with people he used to know. Primeheart did his usual prayers and services at the temples, and Kelly spent some of her morning and then went to the beer forge to talk to Ivy, and they discussed Red, and Kelly was curious as to the contents of the letter that Red had delivered, which was a letter of apology for their actions which brought damage to the beer forge, and also they offered to repay for the damages as much as possible, even though they weren't quite as responsible for it as our group. And by which I mean they really weren't responsible for it at all.
Yeah, no, not in the least.
Red was very sweet, but Ivy did say the rest of the group probably deserved it. And then Kelly inquired about supplying eggs to Ivy, wondering how many eggs Ivy uses on a daily basis, given that Kelly had kind of fallen in love with chickens. And Ivy uses 300 to 400 eggs a day, and Stroop uses almost twice that amount. So, having the idea that potentially she could start a chicken farm, Kelly excused herself to go buy 17 more chickens, bringing her total up to 20. Nathan spent some time using the sunflower oil on his scar and trained with Owen. And Nyx, as Bridget, noticed that Moira, the Bodron, would just stare at the front door within the domicile. And they tried to convince Moira that they had to do some work before taking the Modron to go see Mo. But Moira just argued that was semantics. She just wanted to go meet Mo. So, back at the beer forge, Rosie came back to play, and the rest of the group also made their way back. Connor, having met Nathan for the first time, described himself as a friend of Nyx, which Nathan took to mean a sexual way. Rosie approached and offered to bite, which Connor turned into a flirt, and Rosie was kind of taken aback that someone was flirting with her. Primeheart entered with Callie, offering to host the chickens at his camp, which means that they would be even more chickens than just the 20 that she has. She currently has upwards of, I think, 200 chickens now. I did the calculations for the space they would need, and there is more than enough room at Primeheart's estate, so the chicken herd is growing. Lark helped name quite a few of them, with Mother Clucker probably being my favorite name, alongside Eggs and his mate Tubes, which makes me laugh a lot. Connor and Callie flirted, as is her wont to flirt with anybody because she's Callie. And then Bridget came in and met Callie in her new form, and for a moment paused to meet her until Callie said, "You know, it's me. We've slept together before. Remember?" And then the pair had kind of smoothed over any remaining hard feelings that there could have been regarding Callie's second reincarnation. Bridget introduced Moira to the party, and Rosie revealed the bag of rats, which Nathan's owl Keylime noticed and immediately was threatened upon by Rosie. Callie, remembering that Nathan had a special invocation called Eyes of the Rune Seeker, which let him read any language, immediately gave him her holy tome from the Dragon Sentinel to read and try and parse out whether or not the hunting and destroying of Goa as abominations is something that was actually sanctioned in the Holy Book or something that her order was making up. It's going to take a little bit of time because it's a little bit more of an archaic tome with language that reads a lot like a Bible, and a lot of the verbiage has little meaning in most language. So Nathan is kind of puzzling that out for Callie. but she did urge for him to be very careful, as it is one of the only existing holy tomes of the order from the original monks. Primeheart asked if she would like to Rosie if she would like to perform at Callie's temple, and Rosie agreed, commenting that the acoustics are probably great. So the party decided to take Moira to Moe's and get the Urn of Essence, and head maybe for getting that blink dog that was in the sewers, trying to aim for something maybe a little less dangerous than a trip to the Shadowfell. On the way to Pimbles, Nathan apologized to Bridget for being so harsh to Thomas, and both Moira and Rosie seemed to be interested in the topic. Nix appreciated the sentiment and agreed that each form was kind of their own person and with their own thoughts and feelings. The object of and topic of attraction came up, and Moira didn't quite understand. Primeheart shared the biology of creatures and the correlation between attraction and physical symmetry, and Callie said that she judges people's attractiveness based on divine geometry and the symmetry involved in that. Nathan wondered if his divine asymmetry made him ugly, but the entire group said otherwise. As the Modron was able to count everybody within sight near immediately, Connor expressed that he wanted Moira to teach him how to count cards. The group got to Moe's tower, and Moira knocked on the door. Moe answered, wearing lederhosen, his latest foray into fashion, saw Moira, froze, and then immediately closed the door in her face. Callie, worrying that maybe they had done something very wrong, headed up to Pinballs and through the portal, which now started sporting several choice predator musks, making this already terrifying portal that much more disturbing. Pinball shared that he had rescued Moe along with a group, and when he met, the Modron had been very matter-of-fact about everything. He also shared that if his family ever showed up, Moe would have to leave, and Modrons are connected with kind of a sort of hive mind, where they create Modron who join to become Duodron, and so on until the entire mass of them all create one, essentially destroying and restarting the universe.
Well, they don't destroy it, but they're
count down to the restart of the universe.
When they become one is when the universe ends and they restart it.
Yeah. Moe talks through the door, sharing that he does know Moira, but he's not interested. And Moira shares that Moe must have a misaligned gear, making him defective. Bridget offers to repair him, but Moe turns her down. Bridget then tries to convince Moe to come out and talk to his family, something that a portion of the group disagreed strong with. A lot of the group don't necessarily have a good relationship with their family, or see family as something that you make, not something that defines you. When pressed, Nathan expressed that his family was gone and that they had either died or they hated him. Rosie was going to be eaten by her family because of her interest in music. Primeheart hadn't seen his family in many years, and the entire group was now his family. And Bridget, on the defensive, shared that she had never met her biological parents, but her adoptive parents were great to her, and that Moe should give his family a second chance. Callie took the urn and made her way out of Pimble's tower, and was told that if Moira was causing trouble, to get Pimble immediately. And Pimble shared with Callie that there was once a Triton in the city who would get paid handsomely to clean the bottom of ships. It's not a glamorous job, but lucrative. And he promised to introduce Callie the next day to the dockmaster so that she could actually begin working, since she had both the ability to hold her breath for long periods of time. Well, actually, she just has the ability to breathe water and is fairly quick.
She had the other one before.
I had the other one before. My brain's a little tired, sorry. New character, who dis? Sorry, that's awful.
New body, who dis?
New body, who dis? The group joined up together, and as Bridget shifted to the Elven Dell, Rosie insisted that everyone had to be initiated into sewers by wearing bow. And then the rest added the fact that we all had to slap butts as we made our way inside. Because why not? once we got into the sewers, Primeheart offered to calm down Keelan, a cast using animal friendship, and Rosie led the group through the sewers, playing with Agrish Karat along the way. The blink drug's tracks were constantly vanishing, only to appear a few dozen steps later, and in the dark, glinting aisles and snarling revealed its location. The group shifted into action as the blink dog appeared and attacked, dragging its victim to the ground. And yelling to stay close, Primeheart did his best to keep it in view, but its shadowy form teleporting in and out made it very difficult for us to follow. The party was able to corner it eventually, and Primeheart activated the urn, beginning the ritual to absorb its essence. As it moved away, the urn was able to release energy to show us the general direction of where it was going, so we were able to follow a little bit. As we gave chase, it did get away from us for a bit, but Primeheart continued concentrating and channeling the ritual, and Primeheart and Callie, who were the only two to stay back and not go wandering off in order to find it, did notice it peering through a crack in a wall and teleporting through to attack Primeheart. The two fought it off together, and it ran just in time to hear it yowling in pain from a few hundred feet away as its soul and essence was sucked into the jar. The group went and found what was left, and the blink dog had been contorted horrifically into some sort of form that we could barely identify. It was definitely dead, and Rosie's rats cleaned up the corpse for us. As we left, Nix and Connor took off to share the rest of their day, and I believe Connor may have spent the night.
May have.
Yep. And as it says here, Nix and Connor shared the rest of their day together. An essential apartment bath was had. Then, too, Callie and Primeheart shared the rest of their day together, and an intimate temple bath was had. Then Nathan was forced to bathe Waffles, the cockatrice, while Binksy wrote it.
Yeah, the image on the adventure journal for that episode is a woman's feet in a bathtub.
Very nice. Very nice. And Rosie also sent her sendings to Haley, telling her about their day. And that was the end of episode 72.
Okay, so episode 73. O'Sheen went to speak with Ezra in the morning. He wanted to talk to Ezra more about the nature temple and why O'Sheen had interest in devoting themselves to nature. They talked for quite a while, with Ezra basically saying that it was good that O'Sheen followed their instincts, but they also needed to have wisdom along with that, and that they needed to find out who they were before they could really help others. So Ezra recommended that O'Sheen go to a well that's in the middle of the forest and sort of speak out their emotions and whatever that they needed to there, because that's what he did when he needed to. Yoth looked into books regarding portals. He was trying to find information on how to create them, but also how to close them, as well as ways to plane shift back and forth. So he found out about spells like plane shift, which could be used for quick travel as opposed to having a portal open constantly. Primeheart insulated all the chicken coops, and Lark helped him do it. Soxy worked, and then Finku worked on his rifle. Everyone met up at the beer forge. It was a pretty slow day. There were still some paint stains on the walls, but overall everything's a lot better. Ivy chatted with them for a bit. Yoth came in disguised as a half-orc because he was hiding from Ivy for obvious reasons. And when he sat down at the table, initially everyone was kind of like, who the hell are you? Ultimately, we figured out, and he told us it was him, and he introduced himself as Ulf and stayed in disguise until after we had left the bar. Though, as we were leaving, Finku did go over to Ivy and tell her, hey, that was Yoth. But she has decided to wait till Yoth comes to her, rather than chasing after him for reparations. The group discussed what to do for the day, including things like whether or not to gather items for the rod, to go into the Shadowfell, go to the castle, or to go after the spider dragon. And they decided to resupply at Arlen's and then go after the spider dragon. Primeheart in particular was very, very excited about going after the spider dragon, seeing as how it had killed Callie. They headed over there, got their supplies. At one point in Arlen's, Yoth did sort of try to steal a ritual. He was going to copy it into his book without paying for the actual scroll, but it takes hours to copy a spell into a scroll, and he didn't have the fancy ink, so he couldn't do that. But we also found out that Arland is willing to take poison sacs or special excretions from creatures if we kill them. He's always interested in those, so if we do ever kill anything that has those, we could take them to him for some coin. And Yoth put a gate and a plane shift scroll on layaway with Arland. Everyone went down to the caves. We did stop and get the urn from Pinball's, although we didn't tell Pinball to take care of the Guardian, because at the time we were thinking we're not going through the portal, so it's fine. That was a mistake. We went down and kept an eye out for the spider dragon. And as we were sort of walking around in that area, eventually the vessel showed up as a much younger version of herself and informed us that she had put the spider dragon somewhere easy to find, because that's not horrifying. And O'Sheen quickly used their sending stone to contact Pinball about the ritual. And then as she was leaving, she said that she left us a present inside the spider dragon and mentioned something about not remembering her name. So we had no idea what we were going to find. We started to turn back just to prep ourselves for the fight. But Imelda, the vessel, threw up a wall of darkness and we were sort of stuck. We went into the next cave, heard some growling, and ended up throwing torches and lit items with the light spell, throwing them so that people could see further, so that we could tell what was going on. And Soxy had dark vision, so she was sort of trying to lead as much as possible. Several people in the party are faster than her, so that didn't actually work out well. Ultimately, Finku was able to get a dagger thrown at the creature and it stuck. When we did finally see it, it had some sort of shadowy essence all over it. And after the dagger was stuck to it, Primeheart cast daylight on the dagger, which caused all of the shadows clinging to the spider dragon to just disperse and sort of burn off. It started to contort and ended up regurgitating a whole bunch of stuff. It was different items and weapons and money. And a few of the items were magical, but there was no evil detected. Yoth started to go into a rage and tried to climb after the creature because it had run away by climbing up the wall. Finku had to chase him up the wall, and then when that didn't work, Soxy cast Hold Person on Yoth just to make him stop, because no one wanted him to kill himself chasing after this stupid spider dragon. She did catch him, so he didn't take a lot of damage, and then she healed him later so that he wasn't injured. When they were digging through the items, they found a ring that was, for anyone who knew her, very obviously Sildana's ring that had the Erasis seal on it. So that had everyone really concerned. And then continuing to go through everything, Finku found a large red ruby about the size of a coin that had some sort of flaw through the middle. And as he looked at it closer, we found that it had abjuration magic on it, and he could see sort of an image of Javea inside the crack. So at that point, the group just gathered everything up as quickly as possible into the bag of holding and headed over to Pinball's to have him check it out, because none of us could look at it and tell what was going on. I mean, characters couldn't, players, I think some of us had some suspicions. We got there and discovered Pinball playing checkers with the young girl from the caves. So that's how he's been distracting her, is playing a game with her or whatnot. She asked if the group had liked their present and said that Javea was the one that had the Erasis ring. So we don't know if Sildana's okay or not. Pinball told us that it was part of an imprisonment spell, trapping her inside the gem, and in order to free her, we would have to speak her part of her true name in order to break the spell. But we'd been saying Javea's name for hours talking about what was going on. So clearly we know Javea is not her real name, but we don't know what her real name is at this point, so we're going to have to try to find out. Pinball also used sending to try to contact Saldana, but didn't get a response. There was no reply, so we don't know if she was asleep and didn't get it or what happened. And so at this point, also, Lark mentioned sort of offhand that he wished we knew something, and several people in the group saw Pinball kind of glance at a clock that was up on the wall. Yoth, meanwhile, had gone over to Eris's apartment because after the events inside the cave, he realized his head wasn't quite on straight. So he went there. He didn't get an answer, so he kicked in the door only to discover it had been unlocked. And ended up just breaking down until Eris got there and they conclaved, which helped clear his head a little. But not as much as last time, since they'd already conclaved together, just the two of them recently. Yoth also expressed concern about what his old pod might be up to, because they were somewhat nefarious, and Eris informed him that Aldion was trying to keep an eye on his old pod and find out more information. They talked some more. Eris admitted that he knew a few other Braith who had gone over 10 years without a conclave, but none of them had gone to the Feywild like Yoth had, so he didn't know if that was affecting him more. And also mentioned that he could be reincarnated, potentially, if the conclaving was really becoming a big problem for Yoth. Though Yoth did express that he liked being a Braith and wanted to stay his race. Back at Pinball's, everyone else had left, but Oisin asked him about the old clock, and we found out that, well, Oisin found out that the clock was a gift, and it had been from someone that he had been in a relationship with a long, long time ago. He'd been told that if you asked it for things, sometimes it might happen. And it did have a very faint magical aura, but not a very strong one. And he'd asked it for little things like, refill this tea or bring me XYZ, and nothing had ever happened. He had gotten it from someone who was involved with the Sub-Rosarium. Oisin wondered whether or not to ask the clock for something, and Pinball wished for his tea to be refilled, only to have nothing happen. Meanwhile, at Mo's tower, Moira was still outside the door, so when Soxy went to go have Mo help her clean off their loot from the cave, she ended up having to go around and go up the slide into the house through the window because Mo didn't want to let Moira in. She talked to Mo more about exactly what would happen if he talked to Moira, and he said that Moira was just after his body. Apparently, the Modrons have something called conflation, where basically he and Moira would merge and become a duodrone. But because of this, he would cease to be Mo, and he wasn't sure if he wanted to do that. So he didn't want to talk to Moira because he didn't want her to affect his decision. He also wasn't sure he wanted to completely cut himself off from his people by not being part of the equation, so he wasn't sure what to do and wanted to make a choice. And then Lark and Primeheart went back to the woods and talked about the chickens some more. And that was the end of episode 73.
Episode 74. Dix had been putting in some time investigating Bezel. They knew he was the head of a small crime family that trades and sells goods, and they're called the Timekeepers. Bridget also spent some time working at the Greasers Union. Nathan worked and trained with Owen. Soxy went to work. Owen had a surprise visit from Tybalt, and let him know that. And Tybalt let him know that talks about military and government were being discussed. They wanted to just establish that they were a nation, not a kingdom, and there's potential for war along the northern border soon, which I believe, if I am not mistaken, is where Callie comes from. Is from the area to the north, so that could be interesting. Owen is being considered to be an advisor, and the council would have a decision on the guard soon, and more talks would be happening shortly as well. Mari spent some time in her shop, and Rosie stole 2 of Nathan's left shoes. Not entirely sure why. Just because, perhaps. and then spent some time with Daisy. At the Beer Forge, Mari and Nix joined Rosie, and Nix informed the group that Thomas had done some info gathering. Soxy joined them, and as Nathan sat down, he found his shoe in the middle of the table, and Nathan suspected Rosie right away. But the rest of the group and Rosie's little lying face basically had the entire group turn against Nathan and say, "How dare you accuse our precious goblin girl?"
To be fair,
poor Nathan.
Well, yes, that's true. Although, to be fair, he was accusing her very aggressively. Was part of it too. She did do it, but he was accusing her very aggressively. It turned out he was right, but
I have to say, Rosie sometimes has a knack for making Nathan look foolish, and I feel bad for him. And somehow garnering sympathy for making Nathan look foolish. But that is my own personal opinion and not part of the recap. So, moving on. The group was leaning towards going to the castle, and so they thought about casting some water breathing, and they made the plan to use Owen's boat to get down to the castle. Nathan grumpily went along. He is not a fan of the water, given the Leviathan's location. And Soxy and Owen tried to change the subject to Owen's boat needing a name, which just turned into sexual innuendos. The group waited for about 15 minutes, got into the boat lift, and headed down to the ocean. Once they reached the castle, they saw a huge boat with the name Birchfield Seekers on it that was pumping air down to other seekers exploring the wreck. The group dropped anchor, secured the boat, and all jumped in, minus Nathan, who was catcalled from the Birchfield Seeker ship until he jumped in. The group saw that half of the larger bricks had been moved off to one side, and 3 workers were dealing with a large section of the wall. As they worked around, several things were found: an earring with a diamond, a body, remnants of a spice carton, a coffer filled with 3 ingots of platinum, each one worth 100 gold. Owen found a pantry filled with different ruined foods, and a sealed cask of cloves, worth 30 gold. Nathan found the body of a sheep, part of a study bookshelf, with a sealed scroll case with a level 4 scroll inside, which I don't know that we have yet. I don't know if we have what that one is.
Nope, we haven't been told what that is yet.
A silver censer to the goddess Shanir, which was the king's personal patron. Mari found the opening hatch that led down into the dungeon. Owen found a place setting. Nathan, in all of this, found a needle for sewing. And it's magical and can be used to cast mending on a cloth item, which is kind of amazing, and I love it.
Yeah, that's kind of cool.
The group noticed that the Seekers also found an entrance into somewhere, and they started pulling out bits of the throne. The group kept working, and one pulled a ripcord thing with a leather ball that inflated, and this green ball floated to the first surface, and they realized it was a signal to send down a crate or something heavy to help lift. And the Seekers all started working in one area, and another group came down. And then the group went over, and they found a large metal tube that you could see into with someone inside. A small, tired, emaciated, starved-looking gnome by the name of Earl Goodsberry. Alive. The group started working very quickly to dig him out, knowing that he needed medical attention very soon. Owen and Soxy worked together to let the Birchfield Seekers know that the king had been a vampire and to be very careful. They did also retrieve Helia's body, which was right next to it, and a religious text to the Light Pantheon. The Divine Light was found as well, which looked pristine. Seekers took everything up on the ship, and the group followed in order to see if the king was still vampiric or not. They met Chibs, a half-elf, who helped clean up the group, and an older woman came over and introduced herself as Meryl de la Vez, named for her grandmother, the famous proctor of the Birchfield Institute. She led us over to the king for Soxy to check to see if he was undead, and as Soxy was testing him when he was in the cage, there was no sign of evil or undeath on him, but some other scent of evil was picked up and was wafting from another room. Soxy and Meryl went into the other room and discovered a set of tools that seemed to have this scent of evil on them, and we think that they may have belonged to the keysmith. Owen expressed interest in these locks and wanted to purchase them potentially. However, we were told that Bezel is the owner, is the intermediary for these seekers, and that we would need to deliver and make a price offer to Bezel, which Owen promised to do, and Meryl said that she was taking him at his word to deliver. The group spent some time with Earl and tried to revive him. Owen cast some healing word, and he did move slightly and whispered, "Saldana." Finally, he was fully healed, but had several levels of exhaustion and almost passed out right there on the spot. Nyx was very confused and wanted to know why Earl was awake, why he wasn't dead, and the group was not forthcoming in giving them answers because this was not the time or the place to discuss. The group decided to send word to Aldeon first, knowing that the leader of the rebellion probably needed to know what was going on. So Rosie used sending and told him another group knew, and the party didn't know what to do. He asked where Earl was and where the group was, and Rosie replied that Earl was in a safe place and he could meet with people at the estate, and Rosie would be staying. He sent her a sending and asked who she was with and who she was meeting with, and as Rosie listed off the people she was with, Nyx received a sending, which none of us are privy to, and the party's not really privy to the fact that Nyx received a sending. We just know that it happened. So everybody but Rosen left, and Rosie, being enamored with Meryl and a love of stories, did have tea with Meryl. Nyx, being absolutely in love with tech, mentioned that Chibs might enjoy their friend Bridget and promised to send Bridget along later. Meryl said that she was fine with having Earl on her ship for now, but she expected to be compensated for his medical attention and hoped that Owen would be back to check on him as needed, or he could have her ship doctors check on him. However, there would be compensation for that as well. Rosie stayed behind to keep an eye on Earl and have tea, and the rest of the group met with Aldeon. When we asked what to do about the former king, he said, hand him over the council. But most of the group was not willing to do that, given that we know that Earl was ultimately innocent and shouldn't be held accountable for crimes he did not commit. Aldeon seemed a little off, but it was possibly because they were harrying him and he was very stressed. There was a discussion on getting him out of the city and sending on his way. He even said that he would pay off Meryl if he needed to get the king out of the city. And they decided to have Nyx disguise themselves to go get the king so they could smuggle him out. Nyx changed to a form they'd never used and would go that evening to pull the king. They would leave behind money and a note asking Meryl to drop it. So Nyx, disguised as quote-unquote other Bridget, headed out to the ship and met with Chibs, who gave her a tour of the ship and showed her the infirmary. And as the new Bridget was being introduced to Rosie, Rosie twitched at the name, which the captain noticed. And she asked Rosie if her friends were going to do anything on the ship, which Rosie, having not been a part of the meeting with Aldeon, was not at all privy to what was happening. And Meryl left for a moment, and it was announced over the speakers that all hands on deck and all guests were needing to leave. Nix was escorted off the ship, but Rosie was allowed to stay. Later that evening, Owen went back to act as doctor, and he was asked about Bridget, but he said he did not know Lou's friend Bridget. He met with Rosie and used message to tell her what happened with Aldeon. They discussed possibly having to make a deal with the captain, and once everything was done, Rosie used sending to say goodnight to Haley, who responded with, "There once was a man from Nantucket who had a hole in his bucket. I like the way it feels, but not..." And then there was no more of that limerick as we head to session 75.
Yep. Logan had fun leaving us hanging on that one. Okay, session 75. So the morning started off with Lark working on a mural at Syl's workshop that Anika had given them the job for. Nix had a secret meeting, which we don't know about, really, and then went to the Greasers Union. O'Sheen went and talked to Ezra and found inside of Pinball's clock a message, "To my beloved, for when you most need it." Signed, PM. And we don't know who PM is. Callie spent the morning looking after her chickens and doing stuff at the church, and Finku continued to work on his rifle. At the beer forge, everyone met up, and they learned that there was a new singer in town who is singing about losing their cockerel. And after listening to the innuendo-filled song, the group decided what to do for the day, and they decided to go into the Shadowfell, so they went to Pinball's to let him know. As they were leaving, Aldeon also came over and said that he had given them some help and had the urn filled a bit more. He and some others had gone and gotten a few more essences into the urn. At Pinball's, everyone geared up, and Pinball got ready to cast the spell and start the ritual. He also gave the group 5 drift globes, which can be used to cast daylight as many times as needed, so that they could use it to protect themselves, because we didn't have anything against shadow, really. And he also gave the group some weapons, and of course, didn't want anyone to get hurt, so he was worried about everybody. He gave Syl a note to take to his friend Finn, who owed him a favor, basically that said to let her borrow his weapon. And Syl got to pick up a flaming, throwable warhammer for her to use for that particular fight in case she needed it. Everyone went through the caves and into the portal and went off after the Drake into the cave. They used daylight spells to try to make things more visible, and the Drake went invisible. So they made their way in, and as they were fighting, Lark was able to knock it unconscious, which allowed Callie to drain as much energy from the creature as possible before it died from the process, which made her very sad. And Syl also got stuck in sort of this whirlpool thing that was going on inside of the hordes, inside of the cave. So she was out of the fight for a good chunk of it, unfortunately. But Finku, O'Sheen, and Syl went to the other side of the water and found the horde for the creature, as well as some undead that they had to fight. They got back through the portal, and they found the vessel, who looked distraught and was covered in something. And she told them that they had made her break her favorite toy. And the group realized with horror that she meant Pinball. So everyone just rushed back as fast as possible to find out what had happened. As they were moving past her, the ground started shaking and rocks started falling. And when they finally got back to Pinball's, they went upstairs and found his room coated in thick red blood and pieces of Pinball. Not surprisingly, O'Sheen just broke down in grief and was clutching as much of him as he could. Finku, remembering the clock and the strange way that Pinball had looked at it when he said wish, asked O'Sheen about it, and O'Sheen, just heartbroken, said that they wished that Pinball was still there. And the group watched as time started to go backwards. So they saw all the parts of Pinball coming back together. They saw him arguing with the vessel, and when she made him no longer one piece. And during all of this, O'Sheen had just a moment to do something, or anyone could have done something. O'Sheen acted first, and he reached into the time loop or whatever, grabbed Pinball, and put their hand over his mouth so that he could stop yelling at the vessel, since that seemed to be what set her off. Doing that ended up causing Pinball to get sort of thrown out of the way, and O'Sheen took the brunt of the damage instead, which ended up with the party just having to watch as O'Sheen was torn apart in front of them. In a panic, even though Ezra had said no more, everyone was just like, we have to do something. So they grabbed as much of much of O'Sheen as they could, and Syl had to pick up Pinball because he was basically catatonic. And they rushed over to the temple as fast as possible. Nyx didn't go with the group, even though they'd been there for the rest of it, because they were worried that it would make Ezra even more upset to see them. Ezra was hesitant to help, especially because he felt like the group hadn't really appreciated what had been done before and was playing with things they shouldn't. At first he said no, but then Pinball very sort of weakly and just desperately asked him, please, that he needed O'Sheen. And Ezra sort of softened and relented. He didn't do it. There was no fanfare. It was just a very, doing the ritual by the book, just getting it done. But Callie and Syl both spoke, and then Lark sort of led Pinball over to speak as well, because Pinball was so out of it that he hadn't really fully processed everything. After that, the ritual did succeed, and O'Sheen actually came back as a Firbolg again, looking mostly like themselves, slightly different eyes, and the hair is longer and blonde instead of being a redhead. But O'Sheen did come back. And that was the end of session 75 and the end of Arc 2, Shadow.
And that started us with Arc 3, Loss.
Yeah, because that name's not ominous or anything. That doesn't worry me at all.
Nope. But we are going to go ahead and invite our illustrious leader, the one and only Crazy Countless Heroes DM, Logan, to join us for our Ask Me Almost Anything. We've been taking your questions and curating quite a list. Feel free to add to the list as we go, and we'll see how things happen. So, Logan, whenever you're ready to join us, sir. Which means you do have to show your camera again, since we can't see you. There you are. Hello.
They can't see me yet.
Nope, not yet.
Well.
Because I'm dying.
But this is a good time, anyone. If you have any last minute questions that have come up during that recap that you want to ask Logan, put it in chat or whisper it to me or Tessa so that we can make sure it gets on the list.
Hello, everybody.
Hello. So, have you been glued to your seat with our epic recap of the last couple episodes of Arc 2? So,
always from behind the screen. You can see my face while I'm DMing too, right? If I remember to turn on my camera.
We usually remind you.
Several times. The funny thing is, the audience can always see me because they get a direct feed. You guys have to deal with the Zoom.
Very true. All right. Are you ready to start with some questions?
I suppose. Are we done with the pleasantries already? Get right to it. Is that it?
There's a lot of questions.
All right, go for it.
I mean,
Start me off with something easy.
I could extend the foreplay if you wanted to, but I figured you'd like to get right to it, banging him out.
I'd like to not be coughing and dying.
We can't help you with that.
Good.
I just took a cough medicine too. All right, hit me with it. Ooh, that was loud. Sorry.
Alrighty. Question numero uno comes from Zach. Logan.
All right.
What is the one moment in the second arc that stood out in your mind from the players and from yourself?
How is that an easy question?
All right, let's see. I'll give you an easier one.
Okay, hold on.
What the easier one? I got it right now.
All right, go for the easier one. Let me come back to the other one. Let me get my voice warmed up. Jesus.
Fennec wants to know Chinese
like
or Mexican food in terms of takeout.
That one's harder. Chinese if it's easy and quick. Mexican if Chinese is not easy. I mean that's pretty simple. I prefer real Mexican versus Taco Bell, but I prefer Taco Bell for having to cook.
There's that. There, was that so hard?
That was easy.
All right, go ahead, Heather.
Tense music. Jeez.
I don't know.
You guys or
You're the one that controls the music, so you tell us.
You're right, I am.
DM picks the music. Players shut their cake holes, I guess.
Alrighty. So are we skipping Zach's question still, or is your voice warmed up enough? Okay.
No,
so
go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
What's the one moment in the second arc that stood out in your mind from the players and from yourself? So, like, I guess, what did we do that stood out to you, and what did you do that stood out to you?
What started the second arc? I'm trying to remember all the stuff that happened then.
Pesca left. Sildana left.
Oh, Jesus. God, that was a while ago. Hold on. I should have been paying attention. What stood out to me? Is that what kind of stood out as a pinnacle moment?
Yep.
These are bad questions. I am just
there are no bad questions.
I mean, they're my memory. Just it's there's probably a dozen things if I went back and thought about it a long time, but on the spot, because I had the questions advanced, I actually didn't read over a lot of them. I was too busy working on some inspiration I got from one of them. So
terrifying.
Yeah, thanks, Fennec.
Yeah, I added a new deity.
That's a do not want.
Seriously.
Okay, so this one doesn't mean a lot to a lot of people. When I realized I had named both of the groups Steel, I'd used Steel in the name of both of the adventuring. I decided to Hail Mary and do something that I had decided not to do before, and bring my other Veil campaign into this one, and cross the streams, and kind of close the gap in the world between this and Shenanigans and Threads in the Veil. So by introducing the Birchfield here, albeit a much 100 years later version of it, that moment to me stood out as very important. While most people who only watch this show and no other, I mean, it meant very little to them. But for me, that moment is probably a very important moment in my mind. So that I know that's probably not the answer people were looking for, but that's what I got.
Okay, and what about the players?
What about the players? What's the same question?
What stood out that the players did?
Oh.
It's a lot to cover, though. It's between Saldana and Pesk leaving and us bringing Oshin back.
Yeah, it's a lot. We died a lot.
Yeah.
Yep. We died a lot.
There was a lot of death.
Some of us died a lot.
No, just as a whole, there was 4 deaths in the party.
Yeah, I had more player deaths in that time than I've had probably in any of my campaigns of the past. Actually, in all my campaigns of the past 10 years. Wait, what?
No, Tolis.
Oh well,
I died 3 times.
All right, no, you're right. You're right. I forgot about Tolis. But Tolis, it was purposeful. There was a lot of meaning. I don't count all the deaths at the end of Tolis, the ones where people had to sacrifice themselves. I don't count those because that was plot driven. You had to do that.
We know.
All the ones before that, there was probably more than that. But there was a lot. It just felt like all compact and a lot of it happening at once. Player wise, gosh, I'm trying to remember any particular moments that really stood out as being that. I mean, I can think of a lot of little things, but I mean, can't.
Yes, I agree. Fennec and Autumn. # stop dying 2K19.
Yeah. All right. No player deaths in 2019. Only TPKs.
No.
All right. I'll just get you all to leave the city and make new characters that way. That worked for the first star. Is that what? No. There was a moment. I'm trying to remember it exactly. It was a. It was. Oh, we had all of Red in this arc, didn't we?
Mm-hmm.
I would say the interaction between Owen and Red and Callie. The idea that Callie and Red were having a ball, and Owen was just getting frustrated as hell, and that just kind of that juxtaposition of the 3 of them. I really like that scene. And it's funny because Red's personality at the beginning of that scene was completely different than it was at the end of the scene. That was the first introduction of Red, and I was going to go a completely different direction. But because of the way that Owen and Callie both kind of reacted in 2 very different ways, I kind of had to lean into one or the other, and I leaned into Callie's version of how things were going more than, there was more of a game and more playful than it was fucking rude.
Callie thought that whole thing was just
Callie and Owen's
just hilarious.
And pretty much everyone's interaction with Red, everybody did a really good job interacting with a character that doesn't speak. It's hard to play a character that doesn't speak. I've done it. I do it to challenge myself. I do it on a few different occasions. I've done it in other games where you guys have had to deal with a pair of gnomes that both were mute.
Yeah, I remember that. They were fun.
They were the cutest couple. They were the cutest
adorable.
fucking
couple. But yeah, so I think that's always a good way to kind of show the strength of the players, is to put them in a situation where it's hard to communicate like that. I haven't been daring enough to try a deaf character yet and see how you would communicate back. But maybe it'll happen.
Hopefully not with Soxy. Lip reading won't be a thing.
But you could talk twice as fast as anybody else with your hands.
True. She's got extra. Okay, you're up, Tessa.
Alrighty.
Tessa.
How do you think the Adventuring Guild arc will go? Do you think the players will be successful in starting their own, or are they going to find themselves working outside, quote unquote, once again, the new regulation?
An arc, the Adventuring arc, the Adventuring Guild arc. Why don't we talk about what it's really called?
You know what it's called. We're ignoring it. Do you want to answer the question
seriously.
or no?
All right, what's the question?
Do you think the players will be successful in starting their own, or are they going to have to find themselves working outside, once again, the new regulations the guild seems intent on setting?
if they decide not to ally themselves with any of them, and I'll be very upfront that there is a chance they could easily connect with any of them. They could join either one. There's a chance they could start their own. I just don't know exactly. I think there's a cat in here. I don't think there's any of them are closed off yet. They tried their hardest with one of them, but I don't think there's any of them locked off yet. I think the most likely thing is they're going to find a way to do it themselves because they're all a bunch of stubborn people. They don't want to be under the hook of anyone, especially after Arc 1. So I'm going to guess that they're going to do their best to do that. Even though that probably means, at least until they prove themselves, they're going to have a lot less benefits out of it. But for the most part, I think that they'll find the greatest gain long term by going at their own. The downside of that is they won't have as many allies. So when we start getting into the heavy shit later on, it's going to be very difficult when they might be dealing with something and realize that they want to call on a particular guild for aid, and that guild has been hired by maybe their enemy. And so now they have to deal with that. Whereas if they were part of the guild, then they could easily go, no, you got to side with us because we're part of the guild. There are pros and cons both ways, and I'm still working on a lot of them. I think, though, overall, they're probably going to push for their own guild. Although I have done everything up to this point to dissuade them from that. But I think that's what they're going to end up doing. But that's not a question about Arc 2.
I mean, it's related. Okay.
You could say that about any question about this game, then.
That's fair. So, next question. It's from Angela. Logan, what was your favorite breakthrough you made in the plot that came to fruition during the second arc? And what were you most excited to get to when we started it? So she's specifically asking about ones we've already done.
I was most excited to get to the closing of the gate. Until halfway through this arc, I went, wait, I know what happens when the gate closes now. Something clicked, and I went, I see all the pieces kind of come together, much like they did earlier tonight. But that was a much grander scale. And as soon as that happened, I realized what Arc 3 was going to be called, because I had these 5 major things that were most likely going to happen. I never like to say anything it's absolutely going to happen, but they're most likely going to happen. And each of those 5 things had a very serious outcome that could happen. You've seen 2 of them. You saw Pinball. He started off the new arc. And they just described that with him being girded all over the place. And then last night with Mo, which they didn't recap, I don't think. But the last night's episode with Mo, which we'll have up on the YouTube soon. Those were these moments that I had kind of locked in, but I realized as we got through it that the closing of the gate was too important, and there's too many consequences. In addition to all the benefits that I don't think most of the players even realize yet. They haven't made the connections yet. Some of them may have, but I don't think all of them have. So anyway, I was looking forward to that, and then the greatest revelation that came through was that wasn't going to be the end of the arc. It couldn't be. So I had to move that into Arc 3. And we ended Arc 2 a little early this time around, which means Arc 3, I have the ending of Arc 3 now as well, thanks to Fennec. And I know now where things are going. So I think I may even have the overlying plot for the entire campaign now.
Dang.
So,
oh, Fennec, we love you, but why?
Which when told us is something I didn't get until I don't even know when.
I remember you saying it was
2 months
really
before it ended.
Yeah, it was close to when we
a month before it ended.
Yeah. That actually brings up a question I had for you that I'm going to throw in here because otherwise I'm going to forget, which is you said that there were, during the whole pinball explodey thing, there were several different things that people could do that would result in slightly different endings. I'm wondering what some of those other endings were, because it's already happened, so it's not going to happen again.
Sure.
And also if there were any specific things you were looking for from the players that would determine which way those went.
I was wanting to see who would step in. That was kind of an interesting idea. As from a DM perspective, I was very proud that everyone kind of let Jay have that moment, because obviously it's their significant other. Makes sense they would react first. I could also see them completely freezing and not acting, but Jay seems like a man of action. So it kind of made sense, even though, or Oshin, well, Jay too, but it makes sense, even though the player has to hesitate in the moment. Oshin wouldn't have hesitated. It would have been instant. And that's how I see it in my head. That's how I try to describe it, that as soon as it rewound and started to play back, Oshin jumped up. And everyone else might have as well, but then when they saw Oshin going, only one person is going to have the opportunity to affect it. With Oshin jumping in, obviously we know how that turned out. The first rule I had was if anybody touches Pinball, they're taking his place. That was number one rule in that scene. So anything that happens to Pinball takes their place. If anybody touched Imelda, they're taking Pinball's place. Either one of those two things happen, that's what's going to happen. There were two other possibilities I had in my head. Well, three, actually. One was to tip the board over or disrupt the game, because they had a checkers or chess set in front of them. I can't remember which right now. I think it was chess, because the games got more complicated as it went on. So they, or maybe they got less complicated. It was checkers. Yeah, I think so. Because originally they started playing chess, and as she got younger, they played lesser and lesser games. So if you disrupted the game in some way or taken a look at the board, it would have been like one move away from finishing. And you could have finished the game, you could have flipped it over, you could have done something like that. That would have disrupted things and probably had Pinball become hurt, but not killed.
Not squished.
More of a tantrum, or cheated to let her win. Again, the idea is he probably wouldn't have died. The other option that came to me only like right at the end of it, right as it was already kind of decided, was you could have smashed the clock. And smashing the clock would have done something kind of interesting. I think it would have taken you back into that moment and left you there, which means that you would have relived that last hour or two separate from yourselves. And then when you came here, just you could have sat there forever, because in my world of I follow some time rules from science fiction. If paradox is possible, time travel is not, vice versa. So you would have been in a different timeline. You never would have run into yourself. They wouldn't have shown up there or anything, because you're already in a different timeline. But that would have been the idea, is that you would have been locked. You could have smashed the clock and become locked in that situation, had an opportunity to attack her and fight her in that moment. And I think we were right towards the end of the night, so I'm glad that one didn't happen. But then she probably would have just been scared off and gone. So those are the ideas I had in my head. If anybody else has any other ideas of what they might have done in that situation, I would be glad to let them know how I might have played it out. But those are the ones I had.
I know that Mike said his idea, had Lark been the first one to act, he was going to tip over the board. I was watching, I wasn't playing, but the only thing I thought of initially was like throwing the drift globe in the middle and casting daylight.
That's an interesting one. I don't know what I would have done there. I guess I probably would have considered that just disrupting the game. Because, you kind of blind people with that. And it's like flashing a camera in their face or something. So I think I would have considered that disrupting the game, or the same type of outcome.
Okay, cool. I think you're up, Tessa.
All right. From Fennec, what are some more holidays of Vale that we haven't seen yet?
When we make them, I'll let you know. As of right now, we're kind of making as we go. We're making what's important as we go. I didn't want to flesh out the entire world because I like world building with my group, but also because when I sit down to actually type shit out, my brain doesn't work. So I do best by bouncing ideas off of people and talking with them and working at the same time. Not everyone can sit down with me for 4 or 5 hours and just listen to me ramble and bounce ideas and ask me questions. So that doesn't happen often. So we just sit there and do work when we can. So when we need something and everyone gets passionate about it, I try to give prompts and try to give goals and then just feed off the ideas people give me and then either change them and come up with how I think it should fit in the world. Or for most part, I try to use exactly what they give me or really close to it and just kind of let that exist. Because one of the things when I went into this project, I said, if I'm opening up my world to everyone to be able to build, I've got to let it be theirs. I got to let them have their moment, their say. That's why we have ferret people. That's why we have a bug race. 2 races I was like, but I can't imagine my world without them now. They're amazing. I love them both, and they are my children. We're only going to keep 3 of the races. And in the end, everyone liked a little bit of everything, and I just went, okay, I guess we're doing all 5. So that's what we did, is we kept all 5, and I'm very happy that we did. But yeah, so that was that. So did I answer the question?
Yes.
All right.
Okay. Next question is from Jay. How different would the arc have been if Saldana hadn't followed through with assassinating the king? And would the focus have still been the Shadowfell?
The focus, yeah, because the Shadowfell was set up to be the focus before we ended Arc 1. If Saldana had not killed the king right then, that would probably not have been the end of Arc 1 that day. I don't know if Plan B would have gone into effect. I'm just not sure all of that would have happened, because there would have been this redeeming moment of the idea that somebody had faith in the king beyond what he was and the rumors they had heard about him. Especially finding out afterwards that he had done nothing. I mean, literally nothing other than had been a pawn in this game the whole time. A Manchurian candidate to end all. It's tough to try to think about it that way. I honestly didn't think what happened was going to have happened. I usually can read the players pretty well. I can usually look at a situation and go, okay, I'm pretty sure I know how this is going to go. 9 times out of 10, I'm thinking exactly what the players do, because I look at all the different plays. I've been playing with them thousands of hours. I understand what they want to do, where they want to go. And then there's that 1 out of 10 times where they surprise the hell out of me. And Saldana killing the king was one of those moments. I think there's a big pause after she did it, because either that or I probably just went to a description, because I was lost in that moment. I was like, I had no clue that was coming. Everything that I had fed up to that point, everything I had said and done, I think some of it had come out. And I don't think my players try to metagame or do it on purpose, but when you hear something like that, like the king is innocent out of character, it is very hard to change what you're going to do in character and or to stick with what you're going to do in that type of moment. So all of that having come out, or at least a little bit of it, and to hear these things, and then all of a sudden still with the king sitting there crying and bawling in front of them, begging for their life, to see Saldana or Gabby really to tear up and do what Saldana would have done. It was amazing. It was one of my favorite moments in the campaign so far, because it surprised me, and I love being surprised. How would things have been different? The king probably would have become one of your biggest allies. Everything that the king said in the last night's speech, or 2 nights ago, whenever it was I had all that ready then. I knew all of that then. I knew that he had been breaking away from Donovan. I knew that he had been able to that it was his idea to give Saldana these gifts as let's show them how the king can, maybe make her the person, that's good in the city, and make the city come back. And because Donovan didn't want the city in the state it was in either. Nobody did. just kind of things just kind of came down to that. And then there's, of course, still the mystery of who broke the boat lift. That one's still sitting out there. Nobody talks about it much anymore. But that is one big hole in what happened, because that right there is really what ended up kind of collapsing everything. Everything fell down around because the boat lift broke and because the city broke. But how would it be different? I think the king would have become an ally, and it would have become a bigger focus on, at least for the players, they would have been a little bit. It would have been hard to trust initially. But I think the players, with everything, they could have come around to it. And the big problem then would have been that you now have the truth on one side and the city's health on the other, and you can't have both. And I'm not sure that the king would have been accepting of the idea of being the scapegoat before he was murdered by his wife. So I don't know. That's a tough question. I really have no idea. But the Shadowfell definitely would have been the focus, and closing the gate probably would have become a larger priority.
Fennec wants to know, is there still a chance that he could still be an ally? Or has that bridge been burned?
I think after the last session, yeah, pretty much. I mean, I don't see him being anything else. He's agreed to be the scapegoat, and he gave you as much information as he had at the time of the questions you were asking. I don't think, I think Earl Goodsberry is not going anywhere. I mean, people are like, oh, he's going to get out of the city. I don't think you're going to see him get out of the city. I don't know what he's going to do about the way he looks, because it's pretty obvious who he is, but it's just something, it's something that you'll need to figure out. But I think he's going to be an ally one way or another.
He didn't seem too angry at the end. He was really angry initially when he saw Soxy, because I was the only one he recognized.
I thought it was more disappointed.
He was disappointed. He had hoped that when he heard it was your group, he was hoping there would be at least one or two more people that he'd recognized, and he kind of really was hoping Sildana would be there.
Yeah.
But when he heard that Sildana was gone,
I think now that he's got Amy, that should help.
No, Autumn. If you've got a theory, you put it out there so I can use that crap.
No, you don't have to.
So let's move on to another question before he gets tangled in that web. Why a Modron for Mo and not another race/creature?
Well, then he wouldn't be named Mo, would he? I love Modrons. We put them into Shenanigans, and I enjoyed them so much. I wanted to see what it would be like to have a PC, or an NPC as a Modron. So I thought he could just be this little servant to Pinball, and then I started reading up more and more about them and their history, and I kind of adapted it for my own world. And I realized, well, he wouldn't really be, they need to be lawful. They almost like they're lawful to a fault. They're almost like I want to say, I think of the Ood from
Doctor Who.
From Doctor Who, they're a servant race. They got to be doing something. They got to do something. It's like I just, you leave me on my own, I'm just gonna be sitting there going, okay, what do I do? And then somebody's like, oh, can you go get some groceries? Oh, I can totally do that. Okay, I've got focus now. That's kind of how I see Mo, and that's why he's always kind of on edge. Is he's like, I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing. He was going through the Monfar, which is a horrible pun. I'm sorry. Don't
apologize for that. I loved it.
It was the Drawn for, that's what it was. But then he magically aged 4 years. And that magical aging, due to a wild magic surge, which seem to be common in Cinderhaven, so you can't control everything, may have come from somewhere in the chat room at some point. That kind of took him out of that. In my mind, it kind of took him out of that idea. But also, now that I'm looking at things, I don't know if that isn't the reason why he wasn't accepted.
That would make sense, because he's 4 years out of sync with the rest of the Modrons.
So I don't know if that is actually, because that was kind of a playful thing I was just doing to a wonderful person in chat. But I didn't know how serious I was taking that in game, other than it was a convenient excuse to get rid of the super over the top craziness of the Monfar. So I'm not sure but that may have something to do with it, because he did mention it several times that he had changed and he had felt weird and he had felt more mature and things, and basically skipped puberty is what happened. But so now being 4 years out of sync is kind of an interesting idea, that would be the real reason why he was removed, not just the idea that, oh well, you don't want to be a part of this really. But I also like the idea that this lawful group who's like, we have to obey this algorithm, we have to do these things this way, can make a judgment call based on somebody's desire and be like, you don't want to be a part of this. But it's like, but I'm here, I'm doing what I'm supposed to do, whether I want to do it or not. That should mean something. And then they can go, well, no, your heart's not in it. When it's such a lawful place, it's a neat juxtaposition on there, on the philosophy of lawfulness.
My heart was absolutely broken.
Anyway,
I was just
Yeah.
destroyed.
The answer was, I wanted a big silly ball of fluff. I mean, that was really what it was. It turned into a very serious kind of character, a fun to do character that people kept going back to and destroying his home. He lawfully kind of organically grew into this idea that he would have his own home, and that Pinball would be like, you're your own person. I'm moving. Go do whatever you want to do. And then to have people kind of start taking advantage of him, some of them very seriously, at least one of them, to the point where he just got he started going a little crazy and getting upset and getting, kind of triggering that whole idea. But no, I like that. I just had a lot of fun with him, and Mo is probably here to stay at this point. I don't know that I'm going to mess with him much more, but no guarantees.
We love Mo.
I love Mo.
Everything's organic. I could change my mind tomorrow just because it
I
makes
know.
sense for the game.
Okay. Next question is from Autumn. Did you intend or expect for Pinball to become such a huge part of the players' lives when you first introduced him?
Yeah. I knew. Introducing a wealthy, bisexual, but mostly gay wizard into any game with Caden and company is pretty much a recipe for a long-term PC. I was definitely not going for a relationship NPC. I was looking specifically, but I tried to do this last time too in Dulles. The idea was it was going to be kind of more of a woman-manizer? I don't know. A sort of friendly individual. I don't know the right term for that. Anyway.
A player?
A playboy. He was going to
Yeah.
go around. He was going to just enjoy things. Well, Tybolt kind of took over that role, and the way that things were going, especially with one particular PC, it just kind of made too much sense. And with everything that started happening, kind of being developed in Pinball's backstory, as we went, it made more and more sense that he would be wanting to connect with one person individually and kind of make a long-term thing instead of wanting to be out there. So with all of that, that was yes, I was sure that Pinball was going to be a long-term NPC. I've done everything I can to make sure he does not become a Gilmore, sponsoring the party level, the same, or if you didn't know anything about Tolis, what was Alexon's Enwolf? Enwolf. Their rich wizard patron in that one. I'm trying really hard not to let them become that one and follow it. By the way, there was another one of those tropes out there. Somebody asked a question about tropes I was getting tired of. That's one of them right there. The rich wizard sponsor of the party. It's a trope I've seen a lot out there, and I've done it. It's easy, and I don't like it, and I'm really trying hard to avoid it. That's one. There you go. Twofer. That was two questions in one. But yes, I absolutely knew that Pinball was going to be a long-term PC. Especially Glitterbeard and the streak of white in his hair. Yes, abso-frickin-lutely. That was PC service right there. Just like Stokes was.
was the best PC service. I loved that.
And Stokes was PC service too, only for certain PCs.
That's so cute. We never came up with a ship name for them, did we?
Gilmore is glorious. Yes, I agree. But Gilmore, if you think Gilmore was the first time that's ever happened in a G&D game, you're sadly mistaken.
I have a question for you, Logan. Is that clock's magic all run out?
All right, hold on. So Autumn had a follow-up question. I'm sorry. So, well, not a question. So, I did not expect pinball to become that big a part of the plot. I was not expecting pinball to be one of the pseudo antagonists retroactively at that moment. When I introduced pinball, he was goofy and fun, and I knew he'd be important. I knew he was going to be plot related, but I had no clue he was going to be the main focus of the entire plot. I had no clue. So, hope that helps. So, what was your question?
Is that clock's magic all run out?
I guess you'll have to keep wishing and find out.
But the question is, who is PM? I want to find out.
I think we all do.
I think we'll know of it. It stands for Pinball's mom. That's my theory. It was given to him by his mom. It's Pinball's mom. I realize that is not actually the case. But Logan's like, I'm not even acknowledging you right now. All right. From Aiden. Will there ever be a Countless Heroes live show? And if yes, will we ever do non-Countless Heroes? Will we ever do non-California cons? He's thinking PAX U 2019.
First off, we've already done a non-California con. We did Dragon Con in Atlanta. We had representation out there. So, if you mean by doing,
and we did Rose City in Oregon.
Yeah, we did. Yeah, I think he means along West Coast. Am I personally going to be on the East Coast anytime in the next year or two? No, probably not. That's too long of a drive, and this guy don't fly. So you want to send a private jet for me? I'll be there. Fine. Big cushy chairs and room service. Fine. I'm all about that. But me personally, I think my goal is Gen Con. That'd be about as far as I'd go. I would love to do Gen Con, but it's still, a 5-day drive. Just to get there, and then 5 or 6 days there, plus a 5-day drive back. Although I do love driving, but that's a lot of driving.
You could definitely do a Texas Con. Texas is not
Texas. Yeah,
Texas would be more doable.
But it's Texas.
But some of the big cities in Texas are not bad.
Yeah.
Here's the problem. There are so many large cons on this coast. I can get more bang for the buck by just doing more cons on this coast. Until we can afford to fly, until we start getting invited, until Nerdsmith starts paying for the tickets, we're probably only going to do this coast. Now, does that mean we won't have representation? No, we've got people in Florida, we got people all over the East Coast. So we will have representation there. We'll send out flyers. We'll have people there. We can have a booth. We're not going to have a booth at most conventions until Nerdsmith starts paying the bills. We're looking at hopefully having a booth at WonderCon 2020. That is our goal for our booth. So we're at a 2-year plan, a 1.5-year plan. Maybe Rose City Comic-Con 2020 as well. Those might be our 2 big ones. But we're going to look at some other conventions here on the West Coast and figure that out. But yes, I would love to do more across the country. Absolutely. What was the first part of that question, though?
Will we ever do a Countless Heroes live show?
Hell no. Okay. Countless Heroes Live. If we're going to do a live show, we're going to be ridiculous, and we're going to do all the players. And I'll show how I used to run 16-player games at my game store, okay?
Oh,
that would be ridiculous. No. I would be very frustrated trying to deal with all 16 of the players, trying to decide who gets to be on the show. I don't know. No, I love everyone, and I could see that possibly being an issue if a lot of people can make it. Um, no, I don't ever see a live show of this happening. I just don't. If it becomes a demand, sure.
Yeah.
If people really want it, I mean, I guess, but those people should be subscribing, and we need more money. I'm not trying to make this sound like a money grab, but people want to talk about the big, these big things. It can't be coming out of my pocket. That's the problem. I can't do those things. We already do 3 conventions a year, plus we do panels at small conventions. We don't get paid for any of that. I mean, you got to think doing a convention for Tess and I for a 4-day weekend is $1,000 minimum, plus food and travel. That's just hotel and tickets and things. So, they've been very generous. Rose City Comic Con was extremely generous to us, and they gave us pro passes. So we did not pay to get in there because we ran the panel there. They were extremely generous. WonderCon, we were setting up to do a few different panels at WonderCon if they accept us. And then SAC Anime the same way. We got pro passes to go there. So hopefully, we can cut back on those costs a little bit. But unfortunately, it's just SAC Anime summer was okay. I would probably go for a day and do a panel and then walk the floor and then be done with it. It's small and not needing to go for 3 days. It is it's fun, but it's not. I prefer the larger conventions.
Yeah, there is one in San Jose too that is closer to us than some of the SoCal ones. Kubla's
Fanime.
There's
Fanime.
Well, there's Fanime, but that's mainly anime. But no, there's a San Jose has started its own convention. I have to look up the name. I'm blanking right now, but that's where I'm from.
I have a list of all of the California ones. There are 37 that are within an hour of us, and we're going to be setting to do panels throughout 2019 at all of them. So, whichever ones accept us, I'll drive out for the day, and just do the panel and then come home. Unless they want me to pay for a ticket, then I probably won't go. But I'll say, well, never mind. Sorry, can't afford. I'm not going to pay to drive out there and then do a panel. Pay to get in to do a panel and then leave. Not even sure what kind of reception we'll get, but every panel we've done so far we've gotten really incredible reception. Much better. Than I've been in some panels, been like, there's 6 people in here. What's going on? And we'll have like 50 people. And like we did podcasting 101, we had over 50 people. It was amazing. So, sorry about that. Yes, absolutely, Jay. You're right. What's next? Or did I not answer that question?
You did. You answered it. Heather, you're taking next question here.
Okay. Let me find one. So you kind of already answered this, but I'm curious if there's any others. Fennec asked, what tabletop RPG trope are you tired of seeing? And you already said the wizard that becomes the sponsor.
Yeah, the wizard becoming the sponsor is the big one that I can think of. I actually saw this question earlier, and I've been trying to rack my brain for tropes. And there's the ones I'm most tired of are the stereotypes. Drow are always the bad guys. And it's I have some Drow in my game here and there in this campaign that are the good guys. Now, I'm not saying that Drow can't be the bad guys. They are. They're designed to be an evil race. But in general, the idea that everything that has dark skin is evil is kind of a bad way to go. And I kind of feel bad because I don't have a lot of humanoid that normally have pale skin like elves and things, dark skins. And when I did, I had Anika, which was great. I had Anika, this beautiful dark-skinned elf drow who was a good character, but then all of a sudden kind of betrayed the party, and or at least parts of the party. And I knew at that time that she was actually going to bring Nathan back into it, but I couldn't let that reveal happen until the right time. And so I'm like going here, God, everyone thinks that, okay, there's yet another. Yeah, I was so frustrated. The moment I was like, I don't want, and then I see her have this good heart. And and more like a Robin Hood figure that's like, no, we're going to get this out of the hands of the bad people any way we can. And Nathan, I love you, but I just don't trust you not to say anything. And then to give half of the business back, he's got more than he had before. She has the other half, and he benefits from the business still more than he ever did before. And that type of thing is something I really, that's the type of thing I really like to break those stereotypes and put things on their heads. Like having the big lumbering characters always be stupid. I am not a big fan of that. I like having a stupid elf or a stupid gnome or a stupid, something. And stupid elves are my very, very favorite. I don't think I've got a lot yet, but I have a couple ideas coming. These ideas that they, like a race of elven hillbillies would be hilarious to me. Like I would just love to do like hill elves. I don't know. The stereotypicalness of races is probably the biggest trope that I like to get away from. And that's why I'm always looking for different races to throw into places. And we've got 100 and some odd NPCs. I have no idea what I've used. And I realized the other day, once again, that furbolgs had been just left off my list. And I don't know why. Maybe it's because we have 2 in the game. No, we don't. We only have 1. There's 2 Goliaths. And I don't know why that keeps... Maybe because Jay does such a good job with it that I just like, it doesn't need any help. Maybe that's what it is, but I don't think of them as much as being characters that should be there. But they're there. You just haven't met them yet.
I will say you have on more than one occasion totally killed an NPC for me by describing this gorgeous person, and then my character going up to talk to them, and they're dumb as a bag of bricks, and I immediately go, I'm done. Just immediately dead. Yep. I'm like, well, that's just no.
Let me squash.
Yep. Oh God.
So here's a story for you. So in Tolus, I let people do downtimes and create pretty much anything they want, and the city and nation sport was squash. That was the big game. So because I wanted something weird and it sounds funny, I like it. So it was almost dodgeball. So squash became the national sport basically. So everything was about squash all over the place. It was just just on the peripheral. So two of the PCs wrote a downtime, and in my mind, from the way I read it, and I know this isn't how they intended it, but these were beautiful, Herculean men that had no flaws. And I went, and they were obviously introduced as possible significant others. And I thought, all right, that's fine. We'll play with that. But if you're not going to give them a flaw, I'm going to give them a flaw. And so I made them meatheads. I made them jocks. They talked about squash a lot. I looked up squash terms. I had them talking all the time about squash and working out. They were guards as well. So working out and playing squash was kind of their life. To the point where both of them one of them got murdered. Not by the SO, but there was no hurt feelings in that moment, it didn't seem. And the other one broke up with them on the night that they were going to engage to them. That was Heather's character. So.
And then he died immediately after.
And then he died immediately after, and there was no tears at all.
Not true. Heather felt awful.
Yeah, obviously, this isn't a real person, but yes, I felt horrible. The whole thing felt horrible. It was a downtime like what we've done before between my character and Logan's character, the NPC, and literally my character was like, I just don't see this going anywhere. Like, I have nothing against you, but this isn't working. And then he pulled out a fucking ring, and Heather is sitting there like, what did you just do to me?
It was funny because a couple of the other players were like, well, how come Tessa has a significant other that doesn't have any flaws? I'm like, did you meet Yivris? Did you spend any sort of time?
I never said
by
that.
Poisoning half the
that
party.
wasn't me, for the record. Okay.
Yvis's idea of a practical joke was getting one of the players indebted to Tanya for months.
Yeah.
And made everyone think that she was going to be leaving, like to go have to spend the rest of eternity with Titania. That was his idea of a joke. That was him getting, well, it wasn't. It was kind of a lesson and a joke because that person was a little rude to him early on. But it was like retribution like 10 times greater than the crime, maybe 100. But he's a fae, so
yeah, that was okay. We got off topic.
we did. I'm sorry.
Okay, I think you're up, Tessa, or do you want me to go ahead and read one?
Oh, I'll grab it. Were there any other NPCs that you are surprised we've latched onto? And were there some you were pretty bummed we've showed little interest in? This is from Angela, and she said, only answer if it's not a spoiler or the characters are pretty much out of the story.
Yes and yes. Did you want to know who?
Yes.
Let's see here.
Are you looking at the NPC list?
I am real quick. Let's see here. There was let's see. Eris was one of those that I thought might get a little bit more play early on. You guys just started to kind of go back to him a little bit. Ezra got more attention than I expected him to. I expected Ezra to kind of be, originally he was played off a little bit like stoic and kind of creepy, and he comes across that way a little bit now, I think, but less so. But the original idea of Ezra was he was going to kind of be this guy that came in and did this one thing as a favor with Afra and was gone, and then all of a sudden everyone's like, oh, I want to see him more. I was like, all right, I was not expecting that. The Goa, the fact that nobody's looked in to check on the Goa, the new Goa first, that one has thrown me a little.
I really want to. Callie doesn't know them. That's like my only thing. I have been like, want the bet because that needs to happen, but I can't make that happen since I don't know they exist.
I expected Haley to get a little more play early on. Not like that. Well, I mean that too, but Helia. Oh, that was one that got me. Nobody seemed to, once they found out about this cleric that sees the king constantly, that was it. Nobody even really talked about her much. They never, like, you have a cleric, a good cleric, going to see a vampire daily, and nobody went to speak with her. I had shit prepared. I was like, oh, well, that's what I get for preparing.
Fennec has a follow-up question of whether Ezra giving Charon vibes was intentional.
Who's Charon? Sounds familiar.
River Styx, the guy that drags you across River Styx. You pay him and he takes you across.
Was he supposed to? I don't think he was supposed to. I really didn't know how to play him initially. Right now, I'm playing him more. He became more about the idea of nature than he did than he was originally. I don't know. I really don't know Ezra really well yet, and I'm just kind of playing him close to the chest. I think you're going to see more of his personality come out in Arc 3. You saw a little bit of it with his talk. First off, his kind of pushing back against the group, but also his talk with Oshin. So you're going to see more and more of that kind of come out. I already know his greatest kind of weaknesses. I know who he is as a person from that aspect, and it'll be interesting to see if and when those come out. So yeah, that's just a few. There's been quite a lot. The fact that nobody's really wanted to get to know any of the 3 half-orcs that run tip to tail, I thought maybe they might get a little bit more connection. And Zeknar Fettles has been, obviously he's been back in town. He's been in town this whole time, and nobody's really looked him up again. So, but the problem is we also have so little time. There's just when we've done this before in Tolis, we had a lot more time than we do now. One of the things I've suggested to the group, and this is a little bit of look behind the scenes, is that we create a list of here's all the things that we've been saying we want to do. So instead of saying they're not having anything to do and Logan coming up with new stuff, why don't we go and check into these older things? And that's going to start coming up because we've probably got about 10 or 12 things on that list, including running into a lot of these people that, just is something that needs to happen. So some people might also think that whatever hasn't been getting a lot of time. Dub, Octavius, as you may have just found out, but his time is coming. He was a throwaway character, and they turned into kind of this prophet that would come here and there, and then all of a sudden he started to get involved with one of the characters, and I'm having to, and it's organic, it makes sense. His personality is going to be changing a little bit, so I can get away from that super angsty, awkward teen phase that I don't want to roleplay every minute of every day.
The hair flips constantly.
The hair flips I can do, but it's that angsty, like, oh, the world is over. I can't do that constantly. I can't role play like that. I can have a few things prepared, but I just can't constantly role play like that and free flow with it. I started to lose character too quickly. So I have to adapt him a little bit, but it made sense because of where his backstory is going. But you're going to see a lot more of him very soon, I think. Did I expect?
I'm excited to hear
the Inquisition. I've never expected the Inquisition. What was I expecting?
That Dub would get involved with the PC, I think.
Hell no, not at all. Dub they were in the park and I needed a throwaway character. I went out there with Dub. I found a piece of bad poetry online, and then the players did what was in the poetry. So I made him a prophet. That is how Dub came about. I went, oh wow, look at that. Okay, the wall and blah, blah, blah. And then when you guys went around the wall, there was like you'd done the first 2 or 3 lines, and I went, well, okay, now let's see, how can I adapt the rest of this? And that is how the painting on the wall with the flowers was born, was because of that bad poem I found online. So, okay. Yes, no, I did not expect Dub to be anything more than a silly throwaway one-time character until he became a prophet.
Okay, next question is from Fennec. She wants to know where the idea of making Saldana's spirit a banshee came from.
I'm opening the window. Sorry, it's really hot in here. I have 4 monitors and a super PC. It's very hot. Much better. Where did making Saldana a banshee come from? Okay, so I have the opportunity to tell you the truth or a beautiful lie. They both have a little truth in them. One has a lot more. I'm going to tell you the beautiful. I want to say that as soon as I conceived in the Shadowfell, and well, I didn't conceive of it, but I brought in the Shadowfell in, that I had this idea of everything being twisted and kind of tormented in that world. And I will admit to having recently watched oh crap, what the hell's the D&D? My brain is done. What's the television show I just watched recently with the kids?
Stranger Things?
Stranger Things, thank you. So having the Shadowfell was kind of an inevitability in this game. I love the idea of mixing that concept with the Umbra from Werewolf, the Apocalypse, which is another role-playing system. So there's always been this kind of shadow world, this kind of twisted version of our world. I had 3 scenarios prepared when they went into the Shadowfell, all of them in the desert down on the ground. I had the maps ready, I had everything. They decided to climb the cliff, fly up to the top of the cliff. I wasn't prepared for that. So the beautiful lie is that when they got up there, I thought instantly, this would be an amazing thing to put here. I put the blanket there just because I was like, that was a really critical moment. I thought maybe whatever, these torn bodies, I was more just trying to creep them out. And then they were going to start exploring the city, and I'm like, there's going to be horrible amounts of dead things there. And then I thought, why aren't there horrible amounts of dead things where they are right now? They're in the castle. Okay, so they started coming out of the castle, and I realized that the big things that might be in that castle that relate to something in our world weren't there anymore because the castle technically wasn't there. So what was happening the last time the castle came around? They were having the picnic. That was the last time the castle was there. And it was a horrible, traumatic moment. That's kind of when it clicked that that it could make sense. I loved the idea in the moment of Sildana's torment, the look on Gabby's face being locked here in the Shadowfell, because that moment broke Gabby, but it broke me too. Gabby and I've talked a lot about that moment outside of the game, and we've had to do a lot of check-ins on it because that moment was really tough for both of us. And so I decided to take that moment, the pain that her and I have felt and shared together. And I do have a very special place in my heart for torturing Gabby, and Gabby has told me she's okay with it. So, but taking that and putting it back into the world again, but also in the moment, I thought, what do I have? Oh, I need this. I got to create this group together. And here's the truth. Banshee was in the CR range. It was the monster that fit the challenge. And after throwing everything else in there. So I went, okay, so Banshee, it's a Banshee, and then what if it's Sildana? And oh my gosh, it makes more sense because then the king's coming, or the things are coming out of the king, and this worn and destroyed body from the vampirism, and it just kind of all started to come together at that moment. But the reason why she's a Banshee is because it fit the CR. And that's the sad part. I would love to think that a Banshee is the perfect thing, and it may be. But I didn't even look. I didn't even look at other options. I looked at what undead fit in that bracket that could make sense, and Banshee was it. So I hate to expose the truth on that one, but that is it. It's sometimes it's just out of necessity. Now I have no problems bringing a monster down or picking a monster up. One of my favorite things to do is to take a kobold or something and give it 20 levels of fighter, and people are like, what the hell's wrong with this kobold? It's on PCP or something. It's TWF. It's on TWF, 2 Up and Fighting. But it's just sometimes that's kind of, especially in the moment when I don't have any time to prep, that's what happens. It's just kind of what fits. Look at the chart, pick that, go, plug and play, and then flavor it in a way that makes sense to the story. So Banshee was kind of picked first, and then it became Sildana, as opposed to me going, it's going to be Sildana. It wasn't Sildana until probably a few seconds before they saw the face, or they saw it was on the picnic or something. There was a moment I could go back and watch. I'd be like, that was it right there. That's the moment when it became Sildana. And that's kind of how it happens. It kind of just happens randomly in my head. So, but yeah, that's it. Sorry. I hope that was okay.
All right. Let's mix it up a little bit with a little bit of a fun one. Are you ready?
Sure.
Fennec wants to know, peppermint or pumpkin spice?
Neither. If I had to give up, if you had to tell me I had to give up both for the rest of my life, I would not be hurt. I would say pumpkin spice probably is a little more likely. Peppermint is a once a year at Christmas I get a craving and I have a candy cane, or I have a piece of peppermint bark, and then I'm done for another year. Pumpkin I'll have probably 2 or 3 times a year. But that's it. Sorry.
I will hands down give up peppermint any day of the week to give me that pumpkin spice.
I really like mint things. I don't know which way I would go with this. I think it would depend on what the item is.
Spearmint is the only mint I really like.
Spearmint is good. Okay, I'm going to skip around a little bit. Alan asked...
Alan?
Mr. Blinks.
Mr. Blinks.
Mr. Blinks?
This one...
My name is Blinksy.
He wasn't asking the question at you necessarily, but I think it's a good way to bring in the whole wild magic thing we do.
Oh boy.
When we were doing our recaps, he said, a sheep? What was Nathan's thought process for that change? And I don't think he actually meant it to be a legit question, but I grabbed it anyway.
Okay.
So go ahead, Logan.
What are we talking about?
When Nathan got turned into a sheep because of the wild magic surge.
Okay, so Logan, one of Logan's favorite things to do is to roll on random charts. I just love the chaos of it. I just love the excitement. So, and to keep things funky fresh, I usually roll an extra die and add or subtract it from the roll, so nobody can map my charts. So I'll be talking about that on Discover RPG at some point. As I have a bunch of little tricks like that, because I have a lot of players who like to look at the book and go, ooh, I know what's happening. Hey, you don't. You have no clue. So I've completely stopped using charts from the books for the most part. I find my own, and if I have to use a chart on the fly, or if I just like a chart the way it is, I just roll usually like, so if it's a percentile, I might roll a d20 and add or subtract it. That way it gives them the opportunity to roll, but also they can't map what's going on. They'll never know where they are exactly on the chart. If they map the entire chart, they might be able to get a range of where they could be, but that'd be about it. And then occasionally I change up the die and I might roll a percentile in addition. So there's always some extra randomness to it, just because I like to keep the players on their toes. But I love rolling on random charts. I don't know, it's just my thing, and it's a fun thing to do. My favorite of all the random things is the random of randomness, the magic item, the wild magic search table, which I didn't necessarily want to bring that into this game. I wanted this to be a very serious game when we first started. I quickly abandoned that idea. I was almost thinking this would be as serious as Critical Role when we first started. And I just realized that just wasn't us. We are not that serious of a no table chatter, no real side chatter. Let's not talk to the audience. That's not who we are. And when you start something like this, especially when you want to take it very seriously, when you start taking it very seriously, not the game itself, but the idea that we're going to do this professionally, you have a tendency to start comparing yourself to the big names and going, well, they do this, they do that, they do this, they do that, because you want to be as good as them. But I quickly had to disassociate being as good as them in quality versus being as good as them in style. And I said, you know what, we're just going to do our own thing, because after our few test runs early on, I went, we're never not going to be goofy and silly, and that's okay. We're entertaining, I hope. You guys seem to like us. That's that. So that was kind of the first part of the question, I think. What was the question? I always do this. Tangent all over the place.
Yep. It was, how did Nathan get turned into a sheep?
How many puppies do you want to have? What the hell did I... Oh, sorry. One more time.
Basically, it was, how did Nathan end up turned into a sheep during that fight?
Right. So random charts. So once I decided, okay, we're going to bring in a random chart, I had to figure out how that was going to happen. Well, we had this rule from from the prequels, I think it was, where I don't know where this came from. I just got the idea that if we just kept quoting Monty Python and Star Wars all night, that it might get boring. So I started to introduce a rule that if you did the same reference twice, or quoted the same movie twice, that there was something would happen. And it's changed over the months. Almost a year now. That it's changed how actually Christmas last year is when we started talking about putting this together. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it changed how the rewards of it. So it ended up just being a wild magic surge on either side. And I've tried to implement reasons for it happening in game, such as Rosie strumming something out on her lute and this weird sparks coming out of it. And so I always try to justify it in game. And if nothing's really happening in the moment, I just hold on to it. I'll use it later. But yeah, so it's that was kind of where that started. Meta affecting game is a very strange balance. You've got to be very careful with it. So I mean that's just that. The wild magic chart also has good and bad things. One of the things is you can become invisible as per greater invisibility for a minute. I mean that's crazy. One of the bad things is you've centered a fireball on yourself and probably your entire party. And then there's you point out your finger and one gold point gem shoot out of it, 100 of them at your enemy. I mean, it's like, what? It's crazy things. Actually, it comes out of the wand. So when you don't have a wand, I don't know where they come out of. We should work on that. I think I've literally had
kidney stones, a whole new.
Yeah, no.
Oh no.
So that is where that came from. You turn to a potted plant, you can turn to a sheep, you can turn, and I usually change up the animals a little bit too. And like the potted plant, I might turn into a different type of plant. I might describe it differently, or I might turn it into any common household item, like a toaster. I think that would be hilarious that a toaster that like doesn't exist in this world, but like see if the players catch it. It's like, wait, what is that thing? It's like I don't know. So that is where that came from. That's how he turned into a sheep, and the idea is that it's just us having fun. It's like us doing the hero dice. It's just another house rule that we implemented to kind of liven up the game a little bit sometimes and introduce a little chaos. Because in case you haven't noticed recently, the players are really good at what they do, to the point where they take out the difficult encounters fairly quickly. So having those little things in there helps me out a lot. It just makes me feel good. So it's just a lot of fun. But yeah, so that type of thing happens sometimes in the middle of combat or the middle of important social things, just because we want them to. It means that our game is not as serious as some other people's, but I kind of like that. I mean, we definitely have our moments. We don't let those things interrupt our moments. We are literally what I love to call the soap opera of D&D. We've got 1,000 people. We have people coming back as clones and long lost siblings. And it is just that type of show, but we're also going to be the comedy. We're going to do the fun stuff, and we're going to be the sitcom as well. That's just who we are. And then we're going to be the fourth wall breaking Deadpool type characters. We try to put all of it in one because that's what gaming's about, is playing the genres you want to play. Is every game that I ever run going to be like this? No. I have some ideas for some very serious campaigns later on, but D&D at its core, to me, is a little silly. And I think there's some good silliness out there that can be had, considering that we've taken this fantasy world and just created, something amazing with it. And I think magic should be unpredictable. I mean, if it was up to me, we'd have wild magic on every time you use magic. But that'd be a lot.
Please no. Also, with 16 of us, there was no way you were going to get all 16 of us serious all the time.
No.
I'm physically incapable of being serious all the time.
Yeah.
All right, let's see here. How many official entrances and exits does Cinderhaven have, and where in the city are they?
That one.
From Autumn.
All right. So we have a Cinderhaven map on the World Anvil, and there's an entire district I forgot about. So, because I made this map at a different time than I described the thing. So if anybody has that up, oh god, I zoomed in really close. I did it again. How do I move around?
Very carefully.
Yeah, I don't know how to zoom in and out. Okay, this is weird. All right, so right where the lake ends, where Three Sides Lake ends, where the Barrelside Ferry dock is, If you draw a line right kind of north there, that is where the city has ended in my brain for a while. I forgot I added this. This district, there were 2 extra districts that kind of existed. This was one of them. I forgot this made it on the map before I finished. So, and I had not really looked at this map because I've been so busy working on everything else. So we're kind of changing it and extending it a little bit. So right now, this big major, I don't know, nobody can see what I'm looking at. So there's a big major road that goes right through Barrel Run, or north of Barrel Run, through, here, let me. You know,
Tessa and I put the link up in the chat too.
Yep. Reminds me that I need to put Callie's Temple on here now.
Give me half a second here.
Ooh, I know what Logan's doing.
Yep. I'm trying anyway.
Oh, I just caught me, Tessa, and Fennec all posted the link to the map in chat.
Yep.
Wow, we just really wanted to make sure you guys got it.
Yes, you wanted to make sure you saw it. Good job, mod team. We are almost done with your questions. So we've got probably 8 more questions, and then we'll be wrapping it up. So thank you guys for sticking with us as we go a little bit more in depth about the story of Cinderhaven and its characters. We do always, of course, need to ask Logan our most important question, Heather, which I will put at the very end.
Okay,
so this is going to be really ugly, but there you go. So, so this here is the map of Cinderhaven for the most part. So this line right here, which I think you can see, right? Yeah. So this line right here, oops, get rid of that. This line right here is basically the dividing line. Oops, it cuts right through here. There it is. Dividing line. So everything down here is Barrel Run, and normally this would cut off right here. This whole district I forgot existed. I'm a horrible DM sometimes. So what it is now, Barrel Run actually extends all the way through here. And then the Guildsman district, Grey Wall is right over here. It's a tiny district, but Grey Wall actually extends over to about here, right through here. Okay, I don't know if anybody can see that. You guys seeing this? Yeah, okay. And then everything from here on up over is the Temple District. Now, what's going to happen in game most likely? And this little guy over here, this is the Dawn District. What's going to happen is the Dawn District is probably going to expand to encompass most of this, with the restructuring of the city, with the new guard and everything. And then Barrel Run will end where it's supposed to end, right here. And the Temple District will be up here, because most of this is just going to kind of have been adapted to it. This over here is Lakeside. This district is their first and only attempt at doing kind of a structured city build. A lot of the rich people got together and said, we don't have a place for our sibling or our children to go and live because they want to live here and there's no more room here. So we're going to make a nice little district with straight streets and blah, blah, blah. And it's basically urban sprawl. And so these are blocks of just, nice houses and that they tried to do. And people pretty much decided they hate it. They think it's ugly and it's not going to happen again. But it's really nice. It's got some lakefront. This was the most recent district to be built, other than this district over here. So then, that was not what I wanted to do. So then we come down here. We got this great gorge here that we don't talk about at all. It actually comes down to water level at this end here, but down here it becomes this huge cliff with a couple of these. None of this is finished, by the way. I apologize. This is just kind of what it is. This here is the Guildsman district. This was originally 2 districts. That's the other one that I talked about is now missing, but this is all the Guildsman district now. And then from the water line and this line here, all of this is technically the Pearl District. But the Pearl District is, when you talk about the Pearl District, most of the time you're just talking about this section right here. This is the rich snobby area. This is where all the fancy stuff are. I think that's Pinball's Tower right there. Don't know what that is. There's some harbors over here. This used to all be just kind of the playground of the rich. This is where the castle was. And you see there's this road that kind of come up. There's this piece of land. I didn't finish this up yet. I apologize. This here's the boat lift. And this is to scale. This being a mile here, that is how big the boat lift is. It's very, very huge. It's designed to bring up 500-foot ships from the ocean. And then all of this is all of the harbors that have been built and kind of grown, or the harbor and the docks have been built and grown because this all of a sudden became shipping and receiving, and it became a place to do commerce. So all of this has grown recently in the city beyond just being kind of the pleasure cruise area of the rich. Then this here is the Mist Vale. This whole area is where the waterfall goes down and comes down to kind of flow over this tropical area. And underneath this stone here is where the entrance to the Undermist is. So exits of the city, official exits, and this road over here will continue, I'm sorry. So the official exits of the city are kind of all over the place. We got a road down here. This is the gate where the players in the first week would enter and exit if they were coming from the mountains. So the mountains are south here. And then they've got this exit here. This road goes off and kind of down. Oops, that went off. Down the other way. There's a road that goes. Yeah, so this goes down and kind of southwest. There's no exit out of west side here. So there's 2 exits out of this area that are main roads. Over here, there's one exit. If I ever talk about the Barrel Run exit, it was originally right here. And then the entry, and this is the one that got used more, but now it's over here. However, there's going to be, now that I think about it, the Barrel Run entrance and exit, like where Haley was met and stuff, that would have been here heading up to the forest. The one over here heads out and goes towards the plains to the west. And then this one here would be the Market District entrance and exit. That would go up to the forest as well. If anybody talks about the road through the forest to Farbrook, that's going to be this one over here that comes out of Greywall. So there's a Greywall. This one kind of just goes to farmland. So there's a Greywall road. There's the so every district basically has one, other than the Guildsman district, which has 2, and the Pearl district, which has none. So there's one here, one here, one here, and one there. So that's pretty much it. And then the one down here, and the one right there. Perfect. So those are the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 total exits of the city. So that is the major roads that go out and spread from the city. This map is probably going to sit in this configuration for now until I get a lot more time, because it took me a long time just to get to this. I'm going to be laying out the districts. Angela's asked me to, so we can do layered maps. So you can click like, I want to see this district. It'll come up with like a glowy area that'll show you that district, and just maybe show you all the stuff in that district. And it'll show you kind of political lines and things. And I don't know what else. We got a lot of options with World Anvil. That'll all be coming in as we can. Hopefully we'll get all that done before the end of the campaign. But if nothing else, we'll be releasing a lot of this information as modules and things that people can then use in their own campaigns if they want, which would be very strange to me, but you're welcome to it. So then that's that. So that answers that question, right?
Yes, very thoroughly too.
This thing. So I'll be trying to pull this up and do more of these types of things later on as well. So sorry that it that I didn't have it neatly done.
Okay. So next question is from Fennec. Is Baba Yaga going to be a big player later on down the line? And how unhappy will she be with Mari at her deals with the Winter Court?
I think once we expose a little bit more of the Nakosta backstory, people are going to understand that the idea is that the Baba Yaga is gone. That she really is gone, and I know that it's, everyone talks about the secrets about where Baba Yaga is and finding her and bringing her back, and I would say that the likelihood the Baba Yaga shows up in any tangible, serious form is going to be very small. That being said, I don't know where everything's going. I only know where some things are going. So I'm not sure. But for the most part, I would say the likelihood the Baba Yaga will be in this particular story, this particular campaign, will be very small.
Alrighty. This question is for me. When doing reincarnation rituals, is it harder to listen to us call to our companion, or is it harder to participate and have to call to one of us to come back?
I'm pretty sure. Okay, correct me if I'm wrong. Did I ever have to do that in Tolus?
I think
Yivris called to, and Yivris called to.
Okay, Yivris called once, maybe twice. Okay, I don't remember those as well. Pinballs is always going to stick with me. I don't know what it was. There was just something that was a tough one to do. I was fucking Mike. I was very content to kind of sit that one out and let you guys handle it. But when he came over, I was like, no, Mike is telling the right story. And so I had Pinball go over there, and I was already hurting. And I was not happy with the outcome of what had been happening, even though I'm the one that did it. Again, I know people think the DM controls everything. I don't feel like I do. I feel like I'm just telling the story that's unfolding. So sometimes there's things that happen, like when I talk about, like today, yay, Denny, hi.
Hi.
Take my lurkers, please. Thank you, sir. Really appreciate it. Good to see you. I'm sorry I haven't been over in a while. We're just doing an AMA right now. We're talking about horrible things, actually. So my what was I saying? Shit, I lost it. I'm sorry.
Pinball was hard. That was not phrased correctly.
No, it's not.
Pinballs was difficult because of the situation. Oh, talking about unfolding the story. There are times when I go, yes, I want this to happen. X, Y, and Z is going to happen. But there are more times than not. Like tonight with Fennec. Fennec said something in one of the questions. I'm not going to tell you guys which one. But Fennec said something in one of the questions. And
we've removed that question actually from the list.
How do you know which question? It wasn't the question previously said before what I said. It was not. I made sure to wait. So you wouldn't know which question it was. Because I was going to say, there's no way you should know which question it is. So if you want, you can throw that one back on there. But there was a moment there, and this happens a lot when, a perfect example, the Nakosta. Jastra, and we talked about this last time, Jastra looked and said, I see something special about Mari. I didn't know Jastra was a Nakosta in that moment. It wasn't until 3 sessions later with Mari that I connected why Jastra said that Mari was different and treated Mari differently. I had no idea what I was doing in that moment. There's sometimes that the NPCs just kind of act a certain way. And I don't know if it's my subconscious brain or I had this idea the whole time, but I really consciously would not have told you. If you had said, is Jasper and Acosta, I would have been like, actually, what I probably would have been like, oh, yes, great idea. And that's what I do to the players all the time, because they connect these dots for me. And I don't know. And it just comes to me. So I'm not always telling the story. Sometimes the story is just unfolding in front of me. And that night was one of those nights. Not everything that night that happened the way that it did was happening the way I thought it was going to happen. I actually didn't want some of that to happen the way it did. But the story said, this is the way it's happening. And so I listened to it. If you listen to people talk about writing scripts or writing novels or things, they'll tell you things come the same way. Sometimes it's the story telling you what it wants, and I just try to get out of its way. I don't know if that makes sense. What was the question? Talking about puppies again? I don't remember. I'm sorry.
Is it harder to listen to us call to a dead companion or to participate? I mean, you went a little left field there, but it's totally understanding.
It is harder to participate, 100%. I can listen to you guys do most of that. It is the act of doing those things to you that break me. Listening to you guys talk about how much you love the NPC and you want them back almost never gets me as much as whatever I had to do to put the NPC in that position, or the PC in that position. That is the point that breaks me. Feeling responsible for hurting my friends is the hardest part of D&D for me. That moment when I have to go, Heather is going to be crying by the end of this night, and it's going to be my fault. And afterwards, she's going to tell me it was amazing, and she's going to tell me to do it again. And that hurts. It hurts me so much, because I don't want to hurt my friends. I want my friends laughing and happy all the time, 100%. I never, ever want my friends hurting. It was only during Tolis that I finally really realized that you can hurt and be happy hurting. We watch sad movies sometimes because we're in a mood and we just want to cry. If you're not that type of person, that's okay. But I do. Jenny, my pseudo daughter, she's the same way. Sometimes she just wants to be really sad. Sometimes when she's sad, she wants to watch something sadder. And I understand that. I feel the same way. Sometimes you just, it's like sometimes when I'm in a really sad mood, I'll watch Lion King and not skip over, that scene, that we won't talk about, and that's rare, but, sometimes I don't skip over that scene. Once out of 50, maybe. And, that's the part that gets me the most. It's not, and yes, participating and having to be in that moment, having to be in that character in that moment, it's tough. When I'm listening to you guys, most of the time I'm thinking as the DM. When I'm having to speak as the PC, as the NPC, I'm them. I am becoming them as much as you are your characters. And that is where it starts to hurt really bad. Beyond whatever I've had to do to you to get to this point. So.
I still say biggest prize for making us feel and just being completely emotionally compromised goes to your husband, Heather, for the Larimore send-off, because that fucking broke me for like 3 days.
Which part?
Neith's tribute to Larimore and hurling the hammer into the sea.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
That was so.
That none of our audience know anything about. So that was a good segue.
Sorry, it hurt me heart a lot.
For anyone who hasn't put two and two together already, Michael, who plays Lark, is my husband, and in Tolis, he came up with a really good send off for a character after they had to sacrifice themselves that literally just broke everyone's hearts.
A lot of people I've seen comment that Mike doesn't talk a lot during the game, because Mike is a passive kind of guy, or he tries to be really hard because, I don't know, he's just kind of a passive kind of guy. He's not going to push to be out in front. When he is given the opportunity and he sees those moments, he does what every good role player does, and he acts the way his character would act, and he says some of the most amazingly poignant and powerful things that it will throw you on your ass. And it doesn't happen incredibly often, but it'll happen at least once an arc where there will be a moment where Lark is just like, hey, I'm gonna slam your fucking ass to the ground with what I'm about to say. And I always wait for those moments.
Whatever you must do.
Yeah, that killed everyone.
Just if you give Lark, that one was me. If you give Lark the spotlight and you give him a powerful moment, he will take it and run with it every time. And then sometimes I put words in his mouth and we get my funniest moments in the freaking campaign ever. So
Dr. McScrooge for life.
No, I was going to go with something the audience might actually know, since we've done that twice now in a row. I was talking about the moment when we're talking about Jastra's or Saldana's ring, and I was like, "Can you put it on a nightstand?" Yes, that is Jastra's ring. I love Mark. I love you, Mike. All right, what's next?
All right. Would Mo have been the dominant personality had he merged? From Jay.
Well, we'll find out next time when he comes in leather chaps and a gimp mask. And no. Would Mo have been? No. Neither would have been the dominant personality. In a truly mathematical world, there would be a perfect blend between the two. If you've ever watched Star Trek Voyager, they have an amazing episode where two of the characters merge. And I don't remember how permanent it was. It maybe lasted for a couple of episodes or maybe half a season or something. But there's a point where they did
Tuvok, right? Yeah.
Tuvok, yeah. Where they had an excellent spoiler alert for putting two of the characters together, and they got a third actor to play them. And the third actor took mannerisms from both and just created this beautiful blend of the characters to the point where you actually took out a lot of the flaws in both and came up with a character that had new flaws, but the lovable personality of both characters. And it worked really well. That is what I would hope that I could pull off. That's why I tried to give Moira a few extra lines, and her little very bluntness was a very different than most kind of passiveness. And I think I would have liked to have come with something kind of in between that was a little bit more socially acceptable, or not acceptable, but a socially personable type character that would have occasionally said the awkward Mo-like thing and occasionally talked about the characters wanting to copulate. So there's kind of that blend of the two. Although I am going to miss that. I hope I'm going to bring Moira back at some point for something, because I fucking love Moira. She was a lot of fun, especially with all of you guys flirting with each other constantly. It's a great way to get you guys to stop.
Never.
All right, who's next?
This one's on you.
Okay. Oh, sorry. Cat is deciding to move.
How many woods would have? Oh, sorry.
No. This is from Alan again, from Mr. Blinks. He actually said question
Alan,
for a Loganator.
Alan.
No, stop that.
Maybe it's Steve. It's Steve. Steve.
Okay. How much time do you spend coming up with dev? I think he means development, and actual campaign-like ideas for each episode. And do you have multiple ideas for each night throughout the week?
You need to tune into Discover RPG on Wednesday, as this is a topic we'll be talking about. But I'll give you a team. We are talking about Sandboxing 101, the Logan way, on Discover RPG this week, where we're going to be talking a little bit about how I DM. I do very little prep work. You would be surprised. As a matter of fact, you'd be shocked at how little prep work I do. Most people are. I've never had anybody talk to me and go, oh, how much do you do prep? And I tell them, and they're like, wow, okay, that's a lot of prep. No. Wow, that's enough prep. No. Wow, that is shockingly little prep, and I don't know how you do it. There's the one. That's the one I usually hear. It is. I don't know how I do it. I can't tell you. I can help you do similar things. What I do is I'm very good at reacting. I'm also very good at lying. I was a can't say it anymore. I was a pathological liar for most of my teens and into my 20s. I broke that because I had very good friends, and it's now something I don't even think about. I just don't do it anymore. But it used to be very, very bad. But I got very, very good at improv and very good at coming up with stories on the fly and changing things and remembering them, and at least I thought. Recently in life, the whole time in life, I've been storytelling, and I used to do a lot of prep, and the players would tinkle all over it. It was not fun to spend several hours prepping something and then having to railroad people into it. It wasn't fun for them. I didn't like being railroaded in games. The most fun in game, the way I described role playing early on in life was, it's like cops and robbers, but if you could be anyone and do anything. It is the storyteller tells the story and you act as a character in it, but you can literally do anything. Imagine being in a video game and going, I want to blow this wall up. You can't do that in most video games, but in this role playing, you can. You can figure out how to make the C4 and get the anarchist cookbook and get some gasoline and cook it up and make some napalm and turn it into C4 and blah 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 blah, whatever. However you do it.
Which we don't condone in any way, shape, or form, for the record.
If you're gonna get that, make sure you get the original. But only for informational purposes, just like it says in the book. And I don't think you'd be on lists anymore for it because it's all over the place. The idea that you can do anything is very freeing, and video games were always very restrictive for me because I wanted to just be able to do anything. It's like, well, there's a lot of video games out there that talk about video games where you're like doing social things. You get like 3 options for how you deal with people. If you watch Markiplier at all, he played a few dating games or phone games where you're talking to people on your phone all the time or texting on AIM back in the day. And they give you 3 options for this relationship you're in, and they're all abusive, terrible options. And I go, I'm not saying any of those. I would have turned off the game. I would have been like, these are not acceptable responses. That's not okay with me. So instead of being forced to play that character who would say those things, in a role-playing game, you could do literally anything. So I take that idea to heart. I want my players to really feel like they can do literally anything in this world. If they decide to pack up and go to Lamina Island, I've encouraged that. I've given them a way to do it. They could do it. They could pack up and go off to the mountains and spend the winter up there going through this place. Will the city be standing when they get back? Probably, but it won't be the way they want it to be or the way they expect. If they want to make a difference in the city, they need to stay there a little bit longer to get some stability. So I'm not trying to force them to stay, but I do put things in place to be like, this is where the plot started, so if you want to continue, you may have to stay here for a while. I believe, do I think they're going to get to Lamina Island? Yes, I think at some point in this campaign, even for a short time, you guys are going to go to Lamina Island. Are they going to get to the ruins of the mountain, the old Goliath city? I have no idea. But the role playing idea is I want them to be able to do anything. So I can't prep anything because I can't prep all those locations. Eventually, we'll have all these notes. We'll have 100,000 words in World Anvil. It'll all be there. I can go back and grab whatever I need whenever I need it. But even then, I still would rather be making new stuff because I'm better in the moment than trying to go back and remember. One of the reasons why I love playing so often is there's no time for me to forget what's happened. If I played once a month, I have to review notes. I have to think about what's happened. I have to talk to the players and go, what happened in the last session? Whereas with this, it's just constant. It's going, and we're talking about it constantly. And so I really love this concept of what I came up with back in Tolis, and then doing it here now. This live real-time campaign has only proven that I really love this style. Now, when it comes down to it, I know that's a really roundabout way to answer your question, whatever it was. The idea basically is I don't do a lot of prep. What I do is I have moments that I want to have, and I have goals that I want to happen. There's certain things I go, this might happen at some point. This might happen at some point. But most of it is reacting to what the players are doing. I put a world in front of them and I look at the things they're interested in and I build a story around those until, like tonight, it locks together and all these pieces kind of connect together. And I go, now I see how these pieces connect, because you start to see little things that they have in common. And then you go, okay, these two things are kind of going together. What can I put in the middle to connect them? And then all of a sudden, boom, you've got one piece. Well, tonight I got one piece that fit 4 things together. And so now the 4 major plot lines that are going on right now all are connected by one thing. And they're not going to find out maybe till the end of this arc, maybe into the next arc, what that one thing is. But I have that now. And so now I've got a direction. So now that I have that, I've started a little prep. But again, all I have are moments. I have certain things I think are going to happen, but I never lock them in. I never become so rigid that I'm like, these things have to happen, because better stories might come along. And the stories that your players tell are always better than the stories you can tell by yourself. Always. Because when you're telling a story together, you get the best of every world. So that is that. Now, am I saying you should never do any prep? No. But I have some guidelines that we'll talk about on Discover RPG. But like one of them is, don't lock yourself into an NPC. If you have information that an NPC needs to give to a player, like if you read a module, the module says this NPC, this crazy gypsy woman, horrible term, I'm sorry, this crazy nomadic woman, storyteller or fortune teller is the one the players have to go to get this information. I hate that. What if they never want to go there? What you need is a person who is socially outside of the norm for the city. So you can create 3 different NPCs for that. You can create the woman fortune teller that's kind of creepy. You can create the back alley bum who rambles on. You can create shouldn't have done this off the top of my head. Anyway, the point is, you can create 3 or 4 NPCs that fit that mold, or you can create it's a creepy woman, if you want to be a woman, or a creepy person who has some sort of propheticness to them, and then plug them in. It could be a cleric, it could be the fortune teller, it could be a child, and you just plug it in where you need it. So wherever the characters go, you can make an NPC that can give that information. That is sort of how I do it. I have the information I know they need. I know I can find an NPC or some way to get them that information wherever they go. Now, does this set up some coincidences in the story? Yes. But 2 things. 1, in D&D, you need to ignore the coincidences. 2, if the players didn't get that information, we wouldn't be telling their story. The point is, we only tell the story about the heroes, the ones that got the information. So if they didn't get it, we wouldn't be talking about it. So those types of things are the types of things that happen to heroes. That's the way it is. So otherwise, we wouldn't talk about them. All right, there you go. Sorry. I hope that helped. Discover RPG is going to expand on that, and we're going to do a whole series of stuff. We're going to talk about sandbox, building the sandbox, I think is what we're going to call the segment on Discover RPG. We'll do that for a few weeks, and I'll bring up all of these topics there and expand on them.
Alrighty.
What's next?
5 more questions. Ready?
Sure.
Was Bezel's clock similar to Pinball's had it not been broken?
I'll say one thing about that. They look like they could have been made by the same person.
Oh, well then.
Well,
They had the same level of craftsmanship and the same style. One was a mantle clock, and one was a cuckoo clock, but they were the same style.
good job, Autumn.
Whether or not that was true before tonight, I won't tell you.
Wait, PM Pendulum? We just met Pendulum. Okay. Sorry, moving on. Heather's brain is like, crap, what is he doing?
Yeah.
Okay, given that Bezel has those magical bracers and the conversation about how they hide people from the Nocturne, is there an underground artificer's market in Cinderhaven for black market magic items? And that's a question from Fennec.
Both yes and no.
There is now.
No. I made it very clear early on that Bezel was the only other person in town that could trade in magic items. But the idea of it being black market creators of magic items, the answer to that is both yes and no. I can't give you more information than that.
Awesome. All right, here's one from Fennec.
Sometimes I smirk just to make you think I'm smirking.
This is true.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes I grin like an idiot and can't control it.
Sorry, my brain just shut down. Jason Carl just started following in vain on Twitter, and my brain broke. So I apologize.
I don't know
So for those who don't know, Jason Carl is the producer of 5th edition Vampire the Masquerade, and was the DM for LA by Night
cool.
on Geek and Sundry, and he just started following my vampire podcast. So I had a moment, so I apologize. Did Aldion ask Nyx to murder the king? And that question is from Fennec.
Okay, first off, why would you think such a thing? Second off, I'm going to answer that. This is rhetorical. Second off, that is not Arc 2.
I believe it was in the sending that we discussed at the very end of the episode before Arc 2 ended. So I believe that is an Arc 2 question.
Which sending? When?
When we discovered the king and Rosie was talking to Aldion and he said, "Who's with you?" And the second Rosie said Nyx, you said, "Gabby, I'm a DM you."
She said everyone's name.
Yeah, but you specifically singled out Gabby and said, "I'm going to DM you."
So, and?
This is a lot of deflection, Logan.
I'm just curious where this is coming from. I'm not going to answer the question one way or another. That's a horrible question. It's not a horrible question. It's a horrible thing to ask, because that's, if it was true, obviously an ongoing plot point. So, first off, I will say this. I would never put a player in the position of having to PvP with the party. I work for a lawyer. Of course, there's a lot of lawyer talk. No, seriously, I would not put a player in the position of PvPing with the party in such a dramatic fashion as that. I'm not going to tell you exactly what was said. I can't yet. And that's an ongoing plot point. That's pretty much all I can say about it. So,
Okay, then.
tune in to find out.
Next up is from Jay. Were there any other characters who had developed in a way you didn't expect in Arc 2 specifically?
All the time. Okay, so Binksy has gone a little bit different than I expected him. Binksy came from a previous campaign, and I liked him so much I had to reuse him. I don't do that a lot. I don't like doing it, but damn it, if Binksy wasn't amazing. And Binksy is just as amazing here. Very different than he was before. I was expecting to kind of go along the similar path as to before, but I don't think he's going to do that. The Imelda is very different than I expected her to be initially. I expected Imelda initially to be a tortured soul, more than I mean, tortured soul sad as opposed to a tortured soul antagonist.
So
So she,
sad instead of Bellatrix.
Yeah, but the originally the vessel was not Imelda, and that changed one night, and it completely, once that connected that that's who it was, it changed a lot of who I thought Imelda was. But Imelda, the original Imelda, the non-vessel Imelda, the live one, was very much a sweet, wonderful person, but unfortunately being corrupted and turned into the vessel, which allowed the connection and portal opening, etc., etc. All of that has changed her. So that was one. I think who else has come around. Pinball is a little different, but not much than I expected him to be. Mo was a pretty weird transition, this whole arc, with the idea of leaving and changing. That all kind of came up this arc. That was very interesting. Was not expecting that. Originally, Mo was probably just going to stay comedic relief for a long time, and he's turned to one of the more touching moments this game so far. Who else? Tybalt is very different than I had expected him to be originally. Afra is extremely different than I expected. Afra is no different than I expected her to be after the first arc. The way the PCs interact with Afra is extremely different than what I expected. I expected a little bit more interaction, but they've pretty much written her off. And then Dub, whatever. Going into this arc, I was not expecting to have a dramatic change this arc or to be as tortured as he seems to be. But, well, you can't be too happy for too long, even Dub. So I think that's all I can think of off the top of my head. So pretty much everyone. I mean, nothing is happening the way I expected it to in this game. I hope it's for the better. We'll see. We won't really know because we can't go back and play it again.
Alrighty, Heather, do you want to? I believe we have one last question.
Okay, Logan. So last question for tonight's Ask Me Almost Anything is, what are your ships?
Is it right for God to be shipping people? I don't think that's... All right, let's see here. That's tough. I don't think they've changed much since last time. I don't think I've introduced any that I'm really excited about. I play NPCs, list NPC ones. All right, hold on. Let me take a look at the list. I really don't know. Let's see here. Meryl Delavez being here opens up a few opportunities. Let's see here. I do have
Meryl Ivy.
What? Meryl Ivy? No. I have one that might come up. Kurzel, Earthwalker, and Zreet might happen. That was
Sabertooth, Tabaxi, and Zreet. That would be fantastic.
I love it. I love it. I love it.
That
I love
one
it.
kind of in my head. Ivy, I think, is perpetually going to be a bachelorette. I don't see her getting with anyone at any time. We're going to see Javea back, I think, this arc. Maybe. Depends on if you guys can figure it out. Might see Hazamu back this arc. Let's see if that opens up anything. Yeah, I don't... It's tough for me to do this because I don't think about the relationships a lot unless I make it apparent. until, I worry about talking about these, and I know that they're not set in stone or anything, but I just don't have anything that kind of jumps out at me. Arc 1 was my time for playing around with that. Arc 2, we talked about it a bit. It's hard for me to kind of put it together at this point.
I'm a horrible person because I just thought Holly from the hospital and Ivy from the Beer Forge, just because it would be the Holly and the Ivy, and that made me very happy, and I'm very, very dumb. But
yeah, they have similar personalities. Haley, we might see Haley back this arc too.
Do you ship Haley and Miss Fennec?
No.
Sorry, Fennec. I tried.
Although I did figure out what race Miss Fennec is, so that's good.
Do the players have any really strange ships that you were just super not into?
I don't know all the player ships. I really don't pay attention a lot to the ships. I'm sorry, guys. I tune out when you guys are talking about that. There's sometimes when I'm really into it. I'm just trying to think of if there's any calamari.
Jay, I love you for that.
Jesus.
I mean, I love me some K Prime.
Yeah.
But calamari is real good.
I love K Prime though. You guys are so cute.
I love how
drop
both...
the P could be crime.
True.
Crime.
You're gonna do bear or do crime. Why not both?
Be gay, do crime. Actually, for Callie and Primeheart, it would be pan, do crime, but
Okay, well, I'm trying to think if I have any new ones, but Tessa, do you have any new ones?
Do I have any new ones? There seems to be a little bit of a softer side to Binksy with how disappointed he was about the whole purchase of his special gift. And there's a part of me that kind of wants Rosie and Binksy to go out on a date just to see what it would be like, which is very strange. But it just popped into my head. I was like, that could be kind of cute, but that could also be kind of terrifying. I'm not sure. I have strange
chaos. The chaos.
The chaos would be epic.
Some would bring. Oh my god.
It would be epic.
I don't know. Logan didn't specify how much older, but I kind of maybe ship Meryl and Owen.
She's late 40s.
Okay, I think Owen is supposed to be 42, so maybe Meryl and Owen.
I don't know that she could trust him that much. She also was kind of married to her job.
True.
But as a ship goes, it's not a bad ship. It's just kind of there.
Yeah, there's
no, there haven't really been any new NPCs to bring in.
What the hell are you talking about?
Well, there's been lots of new NPCs. 9
new NPCs since the last arc.
I mean, that fit into like a relationship with someone.
I was gonna say there's a 10-year difference between Callie and Primeheart. Primeheart is 10 years older than Callie is.
Okay.
I would love if we could sort the NPC list by when they appeared. That would be very helpful. So we've got Amy's back.
Mm-hmm.
We have Anika.
Yes.
Arland.
Yeah.
We have Bezel, Bizzle, and Bozzle. We've got...
Oh, we have Finn now, too.
Chibs. Chibs is out there now. Desmond.
Which one's Desmond?
I don't know who that is. I don't remember. Donovan, Eris, Ezra, Fallon, Finn just got introduced.
Yep.
A grumpy old dwarf
Grumpy old
guy.
dwarf.
Love
Right.
shipping him. That's hard. Hasko.
I have a hard time with your grumpy old dwarf slogan.
Hasko is another one just got introduced. Hazamu got introduced. The Snow Queen's been introduced.
Yeah, I don't really see any of us going after either
Jay
of
has
them.
a new question. Jay
Oh,
says,
there
when will we see Arlen's assistant? I too would like to know when we're going to see Arlen's
I'm
assistant.
pretty sure the wash bucket is just a nod, and I'm not sure Mo has replaced for the cute, adorable sidekick. I don't know that we're gonna see him back. We might.
I want to see Sir Reginald.
Kithra, the librarian.
No, I forgot
Laura,
about her.
the waitress.
That we've spoken to once.
A couple times. Not my fault you guys treated her poorly.
Not all of us did.
Octavius and Syl are definitely a big age difference.
Moira. Nambu. Pendulum. Don't tell me I haven't introduced new NPCs.
You've
Good
definitely
God.
introduced NPCs. I am
I
not.
don't know who Pomery is. Razzie. Smoky River. Nobody's shipping Smoky River.
All right, Logan. It is almost 10:30. Should we go ahead and wrap this puppy up?
I'm almost at the end of the list here. Wabura. Nobody's shipping any of these. There's a ton of
No,
new
that's
NPCs
true.
I've introduced. Don't give me that. I'm sorry they're not living up to your expectations. Maybe I should have more big, beefy whatevers, and then they'll get.
Nope. Well, I mean, someone else may ship them.
Maybe I'll get a thrill cream with a beefy thorax for Wiggler's.
Heather is so not into that idea at all. She's just nope. Just a big fat nope on Heather's face there.
I'm not a shipper tonight. That does not mean I when I get a ship, I'll talk about it. But my ships are already. I've locked in my ships because I have that power. No, I've the few I had. If you go back to the last time we did this, I had quite a few ships for running around there, but I just made some of them come true. Like the Stokes.
That's
Rydell.
cute.
That was my favorite idea when that came about. That they're in a political marriage and she sleeps around and he had Stokes, but of course Saldana, they can't let Saldana know because she's too young. 80 years old. I think that was a great one. I think that was Jay that came up with that originally.
I think it might
Was
have
that
been,
your
yeah.
idea, Jay?
I think it was.
I think it was Jay, but Tessa and I were both like, yes, 100% yes.
Wabura Pip. Pipura. Whoa Pippa. Whoa Pippa.
I only ship Pip with food.
Yeah, at the moment, yeah.
Pippanica.
I could see Pip with potentially one of the triplets. As a hunter, always bringing leather and things to them.
Yeah.
I could see that potentially.
Maybe if we start seeing them more on screen.
I really do like the triplets. Unfortunately, Pesk had more reason to interact with them than Callie does. So
Rydell is a tough one, Fennec. Rydell is a tough character for me to play because I created him as kind of a ditz. I don't know a better way to put that. He's kind of like he was half based off of the off of the Sultan from Aladdin, and half based on kind of the one of the fathers of Cinderella, one of the adaptations where he's just kind of any of the fathers of the single fathers in the Disney world, pretty much. They're all kind of like, a little out there, and he's kind of modeled off of that a little bit. This idea that he's a little more competent than they are. He can get things done, but it's a tough position for me to play. I wasn't expecting to play him a lot, and now he's kind of become a lot more central. Jastra, however, I think you will see more of, if not this arc, at least the next arc.
Yay!
Thanks to Lark's beautiful letter.
Yes, which is a good example of what Logan was saying earlier, where sometimes Mike will do something that just knocks us all on our butts.
Wait until you see the next thing. He gave me an idea almost 2 weeks ago now. I have to wait for the right moment. Something has to happen. It's not anything bad. It's gonna be a hilarious moment. And he gave that to me, and I didn't have to say anything, and he just said, "You're welcome." And I was like, "Yep, there's another one."
Nice.
And I cannot wait for that one to come out.
He told me he sent you something and wouldn't tell me what it was.
Good. It's a brilliant idea, and I cannot wait to make it happen. I just need a good reason. Hopefully, that'll be coming up. Speaking of that, we're going to be looking at possibly doing a larger session for Christmas, for Illumis. I'm hoping, I don't know that we'll get all 16 people on one. That would be kind of crazy, but we might get 10 or maybe 8 and rotate. I'm going to see if there's a day in the next couple of weeks where the majority of people can make it, and we're going to lock that day down. Also, I'm really hoping, and it'll be fun. It's going to be role play. It's going to be goofy. Literally nothing plot related will probably happen, but I can never make promises. It's going to be a Christmas party. I mean, that's what it's going to be. We've done it in Tolis. I absolutely loved it. I want to do something like that here. So that's going to come. But in Tolis, we had 11 people. We could do 11. It was pushing it, but we could do it. Here, I would much rather try to limit that. But next week or two, wherever I can get the majority of people in and hopefully get 10 plus, maybe possible people playing at once, we're going to do that. We're going to be very particular about how we handle it because I want to make sure everyone gets an opportunity to speak. Like in Tolis, what happened was everybody gave everybody gifts, but each person got to have one moment of a gift, one gift they gave to one other person. In addition to that, we did a quick Secret Santa, where everybody got a gift from someone. It's kind of a fun, goofy thing. And then we did a white elephant with some goofy wizard sponsored supplied magic items. So those things are probably likely, unless I come up with better ideas, that you'll see there. So we'll get these one moment gifts given out. And this will be the first game I've ever run where I am pretty much guaranteeing that we will not only have one holiday season like this, but we'll probably have 2. So I am pretty much going to say that I believe, I really want to believe this, but I really hope that we will still be playing this game next year and doing the same goofy, silly things and finishing up sometime next year. Maybe finishing up with our second Illumis or shortly thereafter. So because Illumis Christmas time may not be the best time to try to wrap our game, just because people may not be able to watch. But that's it. I really would love to see this go for another year, and that's my goal. So that means, that would mean 2 levels a month for the next year. Is that right? 1 level a month? 1.5 levels a month.
That.
Yeah.
1 level every 5 weeks or so. Yeah. No, 3 weeks? 1 level every 3 weeks or so.
I mean, I'll take it. Not quite as good as one a week, but I'll take it.
Yeah, no, Tolos.
Yeah, not quite as fast.
Crazy. That's because you guys are getting XP. So, I do already have the next milestone. I have 2 different milestones kind of locked in, and I have a 3rd milestone that could happen literally at any time, sitting out there that I'm sure is pretty amazing and pretty out there. But that's going to be a big one, so we'll see if that comes up. But anyway, so that is what I've got for teasers and throwing out theirs and things. And I hope I didn't give away too much tonight.
Nice. We'll
but
find
I believe
out.
that you, I believe that you will still enjoy it no matter what.
All right.
They will be level 20 and probably into epic levels by the time we end. I guarantee you. This group is hitting level 20. I'm not going to not let that happen. We're playing a real time campaign for over a year. I'm going to let them hit level 20 at some point. So don't worry about that. Except for Jay. Jay hits 19 and that's it.
All right, guys. I think that we're going to go ahead and call it there for the night. It is after 10:30. I'm so sorry. This is a little bit longer of a Countless Chronicles than we normally do, but that is okay because the Ask Me Anythings are super important.
That's right.
Super important.
Yep. So you can tune in tomorrow at
questions.
Yes,
yes, absolutely.
Awesome. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, all the questions were great. We love getting them. Don't forget, Countless Chronicles. Oop, just hit my wire in my face. Countless Chronicles is back again in 2 weeks. So 2 Mondays from now, you can catch us again.
The day before Christmas? Christmas Eve?
No, the 17th.
That's 3 weeks from now.
It's the 17th.
Got it. Okay, sorry.
So if you have any questions about things that are happening in game, questions for us or whoever happens to be our guest that night, don't forget to send those to us on our Discord, or you can direct message them to myself or Tessa.
Yep, either one of us. Go ahead.
And on Wednesdays at noon PST, you can tune in to Discover RPG to learn more about my process. And Angela and I shoot the shit and talk about all sorts of random stuff. We go on crazy tangents. We get silly and goofy. We'll be talking about World Anvil and some homebrew and what to be talking about. Why aren't wizards like gods in every world ever? Why do they not just conquer everything? An article written in a world building magazine that we'll be promoting just because we want to. They're not paying us, but on Discover RPG noon PST on Wednesday. Wednesday afternoon, also, I will be debuting a personal project, which and I haven't talked to Autumn yet if I can use her art for this. But Devious Muppet, my new personal streaming channel, I will be doing some video games. I will be starting probably with the Stanley Parable, which I know absolutely nothing about. Angela may or may not be there as a guest to help me out and do some chitter chatter. She has created some amazing art for my frame. Which has very much a thank you, Autumn, which has a kind of adult Sesame Street vibe, and I think we're gonna have some guests on, and we're gonna play some fun games. But I'm gonna start with Stanley Parable, see if anybody even really likes what I do. And I don't know if I can talk while playing video games. I've been trying, but I think I'm playing the wrong type of video games. I've been playing a lot of shoot 'ems and gathering and just kind of boring games. I think with something to talk about, things actually going on the screen that are not just mundane, I'll be good at it. So let's take a look. So anyway, that'll be sometime probably Wednesday afternoon. But I don't have an exact time on that. And of course, Wednesday night we'll be doing the other thing, and then the Devious Muppet will be doing it every once in a while. Anyway, so Devious Muppet over on Twitch, you can follow that if you want, and we'll see you there.
All right. Well, thank you, Logan, for coming on and answering questions, and thank you guys for sticking with us so late. And so, as always, you can catch Countless Heroes Tuesday through Friday from 7 to 11 p.m. Sometimes we go over if interesting things are happening. And also on Saturdays from 1 p.m. to around 5 p.m. There will be no Countless Heroes this Saturday. My husband's taking me on a date weekend, so yeah.
Yes, this Saturday,
we need breaks once in a while.
I'm going up to Tahoe. Well, no, we wouldn't normally be doing this, but I got suckered into doing another job up there. But I decided instead of just running up after game, I'm going to take my wife up and we're going to spend the day up there in Tahoe and have some fun, and then come back down the next day and spend another day of fun, no working, with Fennec and Heather and Mike, playing some games. And we will let you guys know how that goes. But I apologize that we will not have game next weekend. The last thing is for nerdsmith.org, which we are a very proud sponsor. Member. Everybody in this group is a sponsor of Nerdsmith right now. We are the primary sponsors besides Angela.
Yeah, no, that's true.
The four of us were like, oh, and Kyle. So the five of us, that's, I'm hoping to have the new membership set up to be able to do memberships easier, which along with that should come hopefully the store by the end of this week. If I can get everything tested, I got all the big things done. If I can get all of that done, that means it's possible merchandise may be able to ship before Christmas. I cannot guarantee that, but it is possible that will happen. So,
and it's adorable.
I'm going to do my best to get that done, and that will include some art that we've had commissioned, that you guys have seen, some Mo art and some other things on materials and whatnot. It'll also include our Nerdsmith logo in several different colorways for various the LGBTQ plus styles. I think we've created 11 different styles. We can't do them all, guys, but we've done 11 different ones. So including the standard Nerdsmith logo. So all of that, I'm really hoping I can have all that done by the end of this week. I don't know if it's going to happen. If not this week, it'll happen next week, and then it'll just ship after Christmas probably. So I can't be sure about all of that, but we're trying so hard to get it done. Every spare minute is being spent on that right now. I spent the entire day today working on finishing up the emails. Tomorrow will be spent testing everything. So hopefully we'll be running tests on the whole new system by Wednesday, and then we can start putting the merchandise in the store and getting the store designed. Once that's all done, everything goes live, and then we pray that it all works.
Very true.
And then the flying spaghetti monster comes down to hold us all together, tangle us in your noodly appendages.
All right.
Okay. Yep. So don't forget to tune in tomorrow at 7 p.m. PST for Countless Heroes.
All right. And until then, carry on, you funky little tieflings.
Night, guys.